Hello.
Can you hear me, fam?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good to see you. How's everything in Moscow? How's the weather?
Stressful day today.
You're telling me the internet went out several times. My computers went crazy. I couldn't get us working on Rumble. I was sitting there messing with it. But when all else fails, fam, you got to go into the bag of tricks. You got to go to the longest old time, bestest in the worldest guest in foreign policy, Russian affairs. We love that area. We love that man. He literally is, fam, the returning champion, our friend, Mark Sleboda.
Hey, fam.
Hey, fam.
It's a real honor and a pleasure to be back on the conversation couch. I had no idea I'd be talking to you tonight, Pasta. I think it was just Fiorella. Fiorella, what the hell? Did you just walk out of a beauty salon or what?
It's RT's RT situation.
Yeah. Why could they never make me look that good?
Oh, you have to take it up with the makeup ladies. I don't know.
They just, blew me out of there in like 30 seconds.
I think they're trying to transition a Peruvian woman into a conservative Russian newscaster. It feels like sometimes, like the hair and everything and the outfits, Mark. It's just like, what did you do to my fam?
I don't know. It works for me.
That's why they do it.
Yeah, I'm enjoying seeing her every day on one of my favorite networks of all time. A network that I first grew to love when I saw you on the famous Crosstalk. I mean, man, when I dove into the Ukrainian situation in 2015, I was not up to speed, and I watched all your episodes, and you just were so informative. You, along with our friend who's passed away, Kevin Zeese. He was writing in popularresistance.org. You two are my two go-tos when it came to learning about the Ukraine situation. And what do you know? It's the end of 2022, and we got a serious situation in the Ukraine there, Mr. Sleboda.
We do.
So, fam, I'll let you fire away.
Yeah, so actually, before I asked him to come on, today has been a disastrous day all around, not just for me, where it's been crazy busy, but there were unfortunately several attacks in the Kherson region. There were several attacks in Donbass where some people were murdered, not just civilians, but rather important political figures and their spouses. I mean, this has just been an awful day. And a lot of the criticism, Mark, on Russia now is going to Russia is being timid. They're not really pushing back hard enough. Ukraine is committing these terrorist attacks. Yep. Can you speak a little bit onto what just happened and why do you think Russia has restrained, and do you think that will change?
Sure. So, I mean, today isn't the first day we've seen this, but what the Kiev regime has been doing is a repeated, continuous policy of doing everything they can to assassinate the Ukrainian who once the regime forces are cleared out of an area, then come to power. So the local authorities in areas when Russia clears an area of the regime forces, right? It's not ruling by military fiat. It is elevating up the politicians of East Ukraine who had been elected there, who had been repressed for the last 8 years. To give you an example, the current governor of the Kherson region is the former mayor of its capital city, Kherson City, who was he was also a Rada deputy. So he was elected by the people there, and he was, lustrated out, in 2014 when the regime took power. So they're putting the people of East Ukraine, the people they had previously elected, back in positions of power there. And the regime's policy is they're all traitors and collaborators, and they need to be killed. So what they're doing is they're targeting not only them, but they're sending a message by purposefully killing their families as well, often in the most brutal style. Bombings are the most common, but I've also seen at least one incident where the official and his wife were both stabbed to death dozens of times. And this is, this is the way they work. And Russia has not responded to this. They keep saying that if they're pressed, they will hit what they call decision-making centers, meaning people who make decisions, right? Politicians, top military brass, politicians, and the like. What the U.S. when they invade Iraq or Libya, they call command and control, right? Meaning the leaders of the country, and they go out and they kill them, right? That's what they do. Russia has restrained themselves from that because they have imposed their own limits by their legal definition of what a special military operation is. How many troops they can send, it's capped at 150,000, right? They have 1 million strong army and 2 million reserves untouched, but the forces put into the special military operation have never exceeded 150,000, buttressed with 40 to 50,000 East Ukrainians from Donbass who are fighting themselves to overthrow the regime, have been fighting, So, and the other thing is they don't attack decision-making centers. And at least until last week, they didn't attack infrastructure in any type of systemic way as well. I remember multiple Russian officials, including Medvedev, who is now the head of the National Security Council, promised that if they do bombing attacks inside Crimea, we'll hit decision-making centers. Well, that came and went a month ago. And Russia is still not hitting the leadership of this regime that is doing these murders and terrorist attacks. The cold-blooded murder of Daria Dugin in Moscow, who I knew personally. She was a friend of mine, and no response from the Kremlin that can be attributed in any way.
Yet. Right? I mean, yet, because this pulling back too as well. First of all, somebody asked, she was the one that would have overseen the Azov trials and the LPR. Is that correct?
No. She would not. She has no connection with the government, right?
No, not Dugin. I'm talking about the you said
the officials that were killed.
The officials that were killed.
They were killed today. Yes. She was involved with that. Yes.
Okay, so it wasn't Dugin. Just want to make sure. So all right, cool. So we made that clear. So I said yet because really to tell the fam, when Fee texted me this morning, I'm like, all right, things are going to get hairy really, really soon. We see this major pullback, right, from Russia, and the Western media just goes crazy, right? Oh, Ukrainians are making gains. Oh, But, a lot of us are going, wait a second. This seems really kind of like a little bit kind of reminiscent of like Napoleon days of pulling back and drawing an enemy in of sorts and letting them freeze to death in the winter. Are you suspecting something of that nature is coming? I've even seen articles, Mark, that said, is Russia gearing up for a nuclear attack, and that's why they're getting out of the way? I mean, please square the circle when it comes to the pullback and what's
first of all, it's not a cunning plan. It's not a cunning trap. It's nothing like that.
Okay.
Here's what happened, right? Big picture a minute. When Russia intervention originally went in, they tried this thunder run style, sending fast diversion reconnaissance groups outside of their normal BTGs, hurtling through Kiev, through large areas of Ukraine, down into Kiev, Chernigov, and up through the south. And they were supposed to work hand in hand with Russian intelligence and Ukrainians who wanted to get rid of the regime there, and have Ukrainian troops stand down in different places and stage a coup in Kiev. Well, a lot of that didn't happen, but it worked in the south. And Kherson and Zaporozhye in the south, directly north of Crimea, they were taken by Russia relatively early in the conflict with almost no bloodshed. There wasn't much fighting, right? A lot of the top people just changed sides.
Yeah.
After that, and after they pulled back from the failed attempt to do the same in Kiev and Chernigov, and they had taken some territory in Kharkov as well, that with some more hard-fought fighting, they settled into a rhythm to their primary mission, which was liberating the Donbass, right? And the Donbass was, it has been called at the start of this by Western military experts, the most heavily fortified area on earth, more so than the DMZ in Korea, because the Kiev regime built up steel and concrete fortifications in multiple lines of defense, right? In multiple layers, up over 8 years. And this is in an already tight, urban, agglomerated area that is the Donbass. It's one settlement just flows into the other. And it's everywhere peppered by these Soviet fortress factories. They built factories like fortresses, complete with Cold War era bunkers underground. These things are all over the place. So it is a perfect area for a defender, right? It is a perfect area to it takes away from a lot of the advantages that Russia has with its equipment, its heavy fires advantage. So what Russia set into there was a rhythm where they would take their own time about this in order to minimize their casualties. And minimizing their casualties is important because, as I said, because of their own self-imposed limits, however stupid they are, they're not sending more than 150,000 troops. They're only sending 10% of the Russian active duty military to handle this, right? And they have limited resources. They have rules about what they can hit and what they can't hit. They have to get special permission for things outside the normal parameters, right? So they're grinding through this with an artillery-heavy strategy. They soften an area for weeks ahead of time with a huge artillery advantage, right? They're dumping 50 to 60,000 shells a day on Ukraine, rocket systems, aviation, and they're just pulverizing these defensive lines as long as it takes until nothing is moving. Then they'll send a few recon in force up, check it out. If there's still something there, they'll come back and do it again, right? And only then, when they're sure that there's not a lot of resistance left, that they've done the best that they can. And it's hard because the regime is using, as Amnesty International pointed out, they are turning every school, every hospital, every apartment building into a firing point, often with the people still inside. They don't even bother to evacuate the people. They use them as human shields. So where that happens, Russia can't just artillery shell them there. They've got to storm it, right? And the ones doing most of the fighting in the Donbass are actually East Ukrainians. Doing the hand-to-hand fighting, that's the people of Donbass, of Donetsk and Lugansk, supplemented by the Chechens and the Wagner, the Russian security company, which is nicknamed on the battlefield the Orchestra. So they've been methodically, slowly grinding through these defenses, and you'll hear all the Western media, oh, they're stalled, they're exhausted, they ran out of this, they ran out of that, they're, low morale, all of this nonsense. And then, a couple weeks later, the maps will suddenly be adjusted, and you're like, whoa, they just moved up. And this is continuing on, and they're on there's two big defensive lines left, and they're on the one of them that runs through Seversk, Soledar, and Bakhmut, if you pull a line up there now. But while all of this has been going on, the Kiev regime has not been just twiddling their thumbs. They realized early on that they can't just throw their main forces, what they have, directly into the face of the main Russian military forces there in the Donbass, because it's a losing proposition. So they sat down with the Pentagon, and the Pentagon, the Western media has been very open about this. The Pentagon is planning their war for them. They're funding it, they're arming it, they're trading it, they're providing the intelligence. They've got the CIA and the European on the commandos on the ground.
They got Western troops there, right? We've seen Western troops, man.
And there are lots of Western quote-unquote mercenaries there.
Speaking English.
Increasing numbers of mercs, that are, they're mercenary companies that are funded by Western governments. So, as far as we're concerned, they're Western troops. They have built up, they drafted the entire country, right? No men between the ages of 16 and 60 are allowed to leave Ukraine, right? They have to bribe their way to get out of the country. They have mobilized, as they call it, the entire country. A lot of volunteers, particularly in West Ukraine, and anyone who didn't want to volunteer was forcibly conscripted under less favorable terms. And they even recently, just over a month ago, they raised the conscription age to 70, because that's what you do when you're winning, right? I mean, you send the grandfather out of the nursing home there into the battlefield. So they say that they have built up a 1 million-man army. Okay, that's usual Ghost of Kiev nonsense, right? But what they have done is probably up about 600,000 or more when you count in the police, the National Guard, the neo-Nazi battalions. It's a significant force. And they have been getting all of these weapons from NATO, a lot of them mismatched, not the best things for them, but they've been shepherding a lot of that, saving 70% of it through the months for this big counteroffensive. And they have to come up with a strategy to beat the Russian Battalion Tactical Group, which is the formation that the Russian military operates in. It's very what they call fires heavy. It's the units, they all have their own discrete artillery, rocket systems, electronic warfare units, air defense units, along with the weakness they have is a relatively small amount of infantry. And they're often supplemented by local militias, often by people from Eastern Ukraine, by the militias there from the Donbass. So how do you beat this fires-heavy formation? Because Ukraine is at a 15-1 artillery disadvantage. Most of their tanks have been destroyed. They got another 230 old T-72s that have been refurbished from Poland and an equal number of infantry fighting vehicles, but they're still inferior. So the strategy they came up with is basically to attack everywhere at once. They're attacking or in close succession that you can't move around. They're attacking in multiple axes across broad fronts with quick moving, what amounts to human wave attacks, right? First the diversion reconnaissance groups, then the mechanized infantry, and only then pulling up an armored fist. And it's a strategy that you have to be willing to waste a lot of cannon fodder. A lot of your guys are going to die as you're trying to close the gap with that heavy Russian fires, but they're perfectly willing to do that. Now in the south, in Kherson, the first counteroffensive that was launched, and it's still ongoing, at least until this week. But it failed because the Russians had their defenses prepared there. They had their own hastily built defensive lines. They had heavy buildups of artillery, rocket systems, and aviation, and they just killed them. Right? It turned into a killing zone. The regime counteroffensive. I mean, you have to really blow up a map to see the 3 one-street hamlets that they managed to take back, which was just the Russian military withdrawing from the territory. And in the south there, it's not like Donbass. It's just flat open steppe. It is terrible for an attacker. And they had to charge across this, and they got massacred. And the hospitals and morgues in Kryvyi Rog, in Nikolaev, Odessa were and still are packed. But that was not the last offensive. The Russian military saw the offensive in Kharkov coming, and that was the most lightly already defended area they had. The territory where they had the smallest garrison. But they also saw Kiev building up for other counterattacks that are just now emerging. And that is also in the south, more towards the southeast. One through Ugledar towards Mariupol, which Russian forces took a few months ago, and another one in Zaporozhye. And the truth is that Russia does not have enough forces to hold as much Ukrainian territory as they take it, because they limit the amount of troops that they're participating there to just 10% of the Russian active duty military. They had to prioritize. They couldn't defend it all when it's all being attacked at once. And Kharkov was the least strategic area. So a little over just a week before the offensive was launched there, they slowly started moving most of their troops and equipment out. They only left a small token stay-behind force. There were no real battles there. There was a few holding actions by these stay-behinds, as at the last minute they tried to do some way too hurried evacuations of civilians. All the people of the Kharkov, right, who collaborated with Russia, over the last few months, were going to be fed to the Kraken and the SBI wolves. And just so you know, the new Kiev regime laws that they've put into effect is that anyone who takes humanitarian aid from a Russian is a collaborator. You take food, you take medicine, you're a collaborator. The best you can hope for is 15 years in prison, but we all know most of them end up being shot in the back of the head. And that's actually my biggest concern. And there's a lot of anger that the people in Kharkov were abandoned like this. Why? Because the Kremlin won't commit enough troops to even hold the territory that they've taken. And they say, you can work with us. We're here to stay. The Banderites are not coming back. Well, in Kharkov, their biggest fear, the Banderites came back. And already they announced their cleansing operations in Izium and so forth. Meanwhile, Russia moved their forces to the south, to the area that they want to hold more, right? Towards Mariupol, towards Ugledar. And I do believe that a big goal of this Kharkov counteroffensive that the Kiev and the Pentagon launched, they did not expect to take all that territory so quickly. It completely caught them by surprise. They thought that Russia would fight for it, and that they would then send their reserves, their mobile reserves, in the theater and that would tie them up so that they couldn't be used in the south. And once the reserves were committed up far in the north, then they would launch this counteroffensive that is still coming in the south towards Mariupol and in Zaporozhye. And that offensive, I believe, is going to be bigger and more decisive than anything we've seen so far. And there is a big logistical race as both sides push equipment down in there. And when Russia, for the first time, took out the electricity supply in Ukraine the other day, that's not some knee-jerk reaction about Kharkov. That was specifically timed. First of all, because Kiev has attacked the electricity supply in Donbass, They attacked the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, and they launched artillery shelling into Russia, into the Belgorod region, and attacked the electricity system there, took down the electricity in Belgorod. They were boasting about it for half a day last week. So a little bit of quid pro quo. The other thing is the trains in Ukraine run on electricity. So by taking out the electricity supply, they inhibited the movement of the Kiev regime to move its tanks and its troops and artillery to the south, because every hour matters now as they're massing troops and gear on both sides for what is going to be probably the biggest battle of the year. And it was prioritization. Russia couldn't defend it all. Now, that's not to say that Kiev didn't suffer high casualties in doing it, because while they were moving these DRGs and mechanized infantry in quick into basically uncontested space, well, Russia took advantage of that by using long-range artillery and aviation to pound them. And they, for their big territorial victory hitting air, because there was hardly any Russian troops there, they did take high casualties. So is that a trap? No, because it wasn't intentional. Russia didn't want to give up that territory. They were forced to give it up because they were outmaneuvered, and they had to prioritize based on the small amount of resources that they've actually committed to this special military operation. And as a result of this, there's a lot of anger and public outcry in Russia. It's not the overthrow Putin kind of outcry, and it's certainly not against this, but there's a lot of, let's really mobilize. We are in a total war with NATO at this point, right? It's not just this Banderistan regime, and let's finish it. And so far, the Kremlin has, for its own reasons, resisted that. And I think the two possible motivations for their limiting the size of the special military operation from the beginning are, one, there's the possibility that they're concerned about domestic support. I'm not so sure about that, because even American polling shows that more than 80% of Russians are in favor of the intervention. So I'm not so sure that that's the primary reason. I think the main reason is they wanted to signal to the West, to NATO from the beginning, that their intentions in Ukraine are limited to what was stated, and that they're always willing to go back to the negotiation table on the terms that they set out. And so doing, they hoped to prevent a direct NATO military incursion into Western Ukraine, which is frankly still on the table. But it becomes less and less likely, because at this point, because the first Ukrainian army was essentially destroyed, right? Everything they get now, they're entirely dependent from what tanks they're getting, to artillery shells, to ammunition, to winter clothing, to salaries for the soldiers. Everything comes from the West. And at this point, NATO is being demilitarized. They've run out of their stockpiles. They have very little left to give to Ukraine. There's all these articles in the Western press screaming about the artillery shell gap, because American military industrial complex is not geared up to produce artillery shells. And this is like World War II, an artillery heavy war going on. It will take years to gear up for that. They've been geared up for using high-tech aircraft to fight third world countries and counterinsurgency campaigns. They're not ready for this type of industrial warfare. Russia is. They can produce 1.2 million artillery shells annually. And that's why they're going to win this eventually, unless, they don't do something about the size of the special military operation. Right. Really needs to, because they didn't want to occupy Ukraine, but the reaction from the regime in Kiev and the reaction from NATO, this all-out warfare of complete military supplies, existential economic warfare of sanctions, it's total war. And I think the Kremlin needs to realize that it's not going to get worse than it is now. And they need to give the military the tools it needs, because they've got to take and hold territory, because this doesn't end with just the Donbass anymore, right? You clear them from the Donbass, they will just come back. It has to be, they have to remove the regime in Kiev. If they set up a new regime in Lvov, whatever. But
so I just want to ask you, so you're saying that essentially, right, because this started as a special military operation, Donbass, denazify, demilitarize Ukraine. But it seems like, as you said, that no matter what Russia, no matter what Russia does, that Ukraine is pushing and pushing and pushing. So is NATO, and so are the West, not just militarily, but economically. They're going continuously going after Russia. There doesn't seem to be this push to sit down and have any of these talks.
No.
It seems like Russia is being forced in a way to not just then take over, regain the Donbass, but all of Ukraine? Is that what this has turned into?
I don't want to say all of Ukraine, but definitely all of East Ukraine. Everything, the Dnieper is probably the most defendable line there. Then there's the question, Kiev straddles both sides of the Dnieper. I mean, going into Western Ukraine, it's completely different. In Eastern Ukraine, you know, a majority of the population either support Russia or don't hate it, right? At least that, you know, at the start of this, you know, that's debatable, you know, as things go on. But, you know, certainly in the Donbass, in the south and so on. But in West Ukraine, they have a completely different national identity conception, which is why there was a civil war after the putsch in 2014 for 8 years. Their primary component, for historical and cultural reasons, West Ukraine wasn't even part of Ukraine until just before World War II, right? They were part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, briefly Poland. They weren't part of Ukraine. So they have a very different culture, values, political values, everything. And you can see it clearly, the geographical divide. The primary component of their national identity conception is hating Russians, right? Historically, they don't like Poles or Jews either, right? But that's on the back burner because it's more important right now to hate Russians. Meanwhile, the primary component of the national identity conception of East Ukrainians is the Russians, they're our brother people. We got some funny border there that we don't understand separating this. My sister, my uncle, brother, mother-in-law, they're all Russian. And back and forth across the East Ukrainian border, it's pointless to try to decide if someone is ethnically Russian or ethnic Ukraine. And that's why there's such a big political and cultural divide in the country, that there was this balance from independence in 92 until 2014, finally balanced internally and externally, right? Neutrality was enshrined in the Ukrainian constitution until 2014, so that they didn't go to Russia and antagonize the West, and they didn't go to the West and antagonize East Ukraine. But that internal and external balance was shattered. It was long predicted. I ran a scenario at the LSE for a civil war in Ukraine back in 2010 because everyone saw it coming. And it was the overthrow of the government that the people of East Ukraine had overwhelmingly elected that set this thing off in 2014, and the political and you know, social repression ever since. And, you know, that brings us where we are today. Ukraine is like Humpty Dumpty. It's been pushed off a wall. And the last best hope to try to bring it back together was the Minsk Accords, to make the regime in Kiev politically reconcile with the east of the country. They refused. And we now know from Poroshenko and Angela Merkel, they never intended to fulfill it, that it was always just a playing for time while they built up a powerful NATO-trained and supplied military for the Kiev regime. And that takes us right to where we are now. You can't put Ukraine back together anymore. It ends with the partition or the balkanization of the country. All that matters is where that line is eventually drawn.
Yeah. I think the theory of the Minsk Accord disappeared like Victoria Nuland's cookies on the Maidan in 2014, to be honest with you. But I want to bring up a picture right here because this to me seems like a PR nightmare, right? You said most of the people still, they either like Russia or don't hate them. But when you start pulling out of these areas, and here come the Ukrainians right back in, we see this in Kharkov now, and this is how do we know that the Ukrainian how do we know Ukraine is in the Kharkov region? Because the tying of to poles has started again. This is done by Ukrainian military, and there will be more. These two were accused of stealing flour, and we see this again, Mark. How could this not spell disaster for Putin pulling back his forces when these people are left this?
It's a big betrayal of trust. And I have family. My wife is from Crimea. We have family all over East Ukraine. And this is it's heartbreaking. It is very, I don't know what to say. I don't agree with it at all. And you see this again whenever Russia pulls out. They announce the cleansing, right? And they've been very open about this. The Kiev regime appointed governor of Nikolaev said openly, collaborators, we've put together a special forces squad. They will be hunted down and killed. And I'm not afraid of that word, he said. That's the way it will be, right? There's no justice. This is Nazi justice, right? This is their Banderites are left to run free. Anyone they sent it out on the Telegram, the popular social media channels to report your neighbors. If your neighbors were collaborating or sympathetic with the Russians, let us know and we'll pay them a visit. Right? That's all gone out. And, it's what's happening now. There were long convoys of cars of people desperately fleeing, right? When these standby troops were trying to get the convoys into Russia, into the Donbass, of people fleeing. But of course, could only ever be a small number of people. The majority of people didn't get out in time or couldn't leave, for family reasons or homes or whatever, and weren't willing to become refugees. Well, they're paying the price now. And that video that you just showed me, you can see a lot worse than that. And I've seen it.
I know. I know. And that's a shame.
It's not Russian propaganda, because the Kiev regime people shooting these people in the back of the head, they post videos of themselves doing it online, and the Western media refuses to report it, just like they've refused to report it for the last 8 years.
My last question for you, Mark, is we've seen that Germany's trying to nationalize Gazprom and basically take this away from Russia. Again, Russia is not responding as of yet. Do you think that Russia is going to change their tactic? Putin just said, actually today, if things keep going the way they are, Russia will respond.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how many red lines have to be crossed before something more is done at this point. But they keep escalating and escalating. And they stole $300 billion of Russian reserves in U.S. and Western banks. They just stole it. It's gone. $300 billion. Russia had some of the largest national reserves in the world, right? They just stole it. It was half of Russia's reserves. And now their economic war of sanctions, it turns out that the blowback is much worse for Europe and for Americans trying to fill their gas tank.
Mark, is he?
Yeah. And you can attest to that. Yeah. The cafes, the clubs, the restaurants, they're full. The ruble is stronger than it was before the intervention began. Unemployment.
That's not what Ursula said. Ursula says that you guys are dying out there.
Yeah, okay. All right. I tell you what, I live a middle-class lifestyle in a working-class district, and people are just going about their daily lives. Their spending habits have barely changed. There's been some inflation, but I guarantee you the inflation here is less than they've had in Europe, in the Baltics, in possibly even the United States. So, no,
yeah.
no.
Mark, last
It's-
question for me.
Yeah.
I know you got to get out of here, but Professor Sleboda taught me a long time ago that the particular region I refer to as the Middle East is not. It's the Caucasus region. Azerbaijan and Armenians seem to have a little bit of a flare up, and it seemed to be a little bit of a distraction that I think Erdogan counted on for maybe gaining some leverage in the Caucasus region as things kind of tempered on up over there between Azerbaijan and Armenia, because it seems like Erdogan is always an opportunist. Do you think that's the reason, or do you think this is more about Azerbaijan striking a deal with the EU to increase their gas that goes to Europe? And maybe they think, hey, since we got our friends over here and they're depending us on oil, maybe we can grab a little bit more territory.
I mean, there's all of that plays a little here. This is Erdogan and Aliyev in Azerbaijan taking advantage of the opportunity. The truth is that the ceasefire that Russia brokered a couple of years ago, the Armenian government, it has been dragging its feet on fulfilling the terms because it was a bad peace for them, because they lost very high political cost, right? What the concessions they agreed to are very unpopular in Armenia. So they've been dragging their heat on it. And we've seen it a few times. This has been one of the bigger outbreaks, but Azerbaijan is using coercive diplomacy to prod Armenia and say, come on, do what you promised, right? And at the time, one of the big issues that was supposed to be decided with this ceasefire is finally agreeing on a delimitation of the borders. And because Armenia is dragging their heels on this, Azerbaijan and Turkey, because Turkey backs Azerbaijan, sees a little bit of opportunity here. They can take another village, another half a kilometer, create new facts on the ground, and when they finally sit down to delimit the border, that becomes part of Azerbaijan then. So they're playing this little game of death by inches. There's not going to be any big outbreak of resumption. Azerbaijan is not going to storm and ethnically cleanse Nagorno-Karabakh, because there would be too much. Even the Europe wouldn't be able to continue their new paltry little oil deal, their little gas deals. Sorry, with Azerbaijan, and they're increasing by 2027 the supply of Azerbaijani gas from Europe to 6% of its needs to 10%. Woo! That'll solve our problem. Right?
4% is big, Mark.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, but no, I mean, this is look at they've been the Western civilization and Eastern civilization have been fighting over these very same hills since the Romans and Parthians were battling again and again in Armenian history. This has been going on in that part of the world, and it will, when we're dead, it will still be going on. But for the moment, it is, just a frozen conflict thawing a little bit, like frozen conflicts often do.
Yeah. Well, it just seems that, people make fun of Erdogan, but it seems like he's really an opportunist, and he seems to get something for his vote,
is an opportunistic beast who will play both sides, and he will leverage Turkey's important geopolitical position to play America and Russia and everyone else against each other all day long. Yeah. It's what he does, and he's very good at it.
Azerbaijan just recently signed a sort of friendship treaty with Russia too, so it's a little complicated over there. The way the French are for the Armenians,
a military strategic partnership.
Yeah.
Russia
it's crazy over there.
Yeah, Russia is allied with Armenia. Armenia is part of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, and Russia has a military base there. But the current prime minister of Armenia is a pro-Western who desperately wants to move Armenia closer to the West, which, because it's a landlocked country surrounded mostly by enemies in the middle of the Caucasus, is impossible. Armenia's existence depends on Russia. That's it. period.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
the Kardashians are really popular
and
in
he's
the
got very
States.
limited room for maneuver.
You know, Mark.
So yeah, well, you know, I
Kardashians
don't
are
think that
popular
actually
here.
matters at all in Armenia.
So we
Yeah,
got to go with
I know that
Armenia.
matters in the U.S., but it doesn't matter in Armenia. So,
Um,
but at the same time,
Mark.
Russia has good relations with Azerbaijan, and they don't want to ruin
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
Because they don't want another war right now. I mean, they don't want another war in the Caucasus, period. But you know, they don't want another war now, especially. So you know, you're playing too rough, basically. And you know, Aliyev will get a few more concessions out of this. He'll get what he wanted. He'll probably do this a few more times before the ceasefire is fully fulfilled. He thinks that he can get Armenia to sign over Nagorno-Karabakh to him with maybe only the lightest of autonomy, if at all. And he may be right.
Well, don't worry.
Well,
Nancy
Mark, I hope
Pelosi's on her way
we.
there next week.
Yeah, I know. I hope we do see some a stronger reaction from Russia. And that's, you know, it's hard to say that because it's not like a lot of us want war, but I mean there's the now the perception is Russia is being weak, and that is not necessarily a perception
And
that is
I mean,
beneficial.
there is certainly a little bit of the jackals sense blood, and you know, there is a certain opportunism with the timing with Aliyev and Erdogan as well. And you just saw a border clash erupt between Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan as well. You know, while mom is busy, the kids get up to all kinds of crazy stuff.
I don't think that the Caucasus region could be like another second playground for something huge to happen, even though there's so many, you know, different countries involved, including Iran. I think like countries like Kosovo and Serbia, we have to watch out for what happens over there. That could be something that can really, I think, spin right out of control. Mark, where can we find your handsome face in Mr. Sleboda's class with this new haircut of yours? And your Raven, you know, wants to join the show next time. So I think we should have the Raven come on in.
There's 3 of them.
Well, one of them was yelling.
And they're crows. They're not ravens.
Sorry, crows.
Yeah, disabled crows. But anyway, you can follow me on Twitter and Telegram. I post more of my stuff on Telegram these days. And I've also got a small little baby YouTube channel with my videos, The Real Politic with Mark Sleboda on YouTube. You can find me there as well. And I'm on Sputnik radio shows in the US every day.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, Mark. Glad to hear from you. Hey, we gotta get together again soon. You're so far away, but yes, thank you so much for coming on and giving us some insight. Appreciate it.
You hang in there, Fiorella.
Our long time,
the newsroom can be brutal.
It's pretty brutal, and the winter is about to be brutal, but at least we'll have heating here, so I'm thankful for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, I love the cold. You'll get the.
Oh, I know.
Hey, Mark, if you run out of wood, don't worry. Lukashenko is chopping up some for Europe. We'll have some sent your way, buddy.
All right, Mark.
He's gone. He's disappeared. There he is.
Yeah. The
Now
truth
we can.
is that Russia has central heating, right? All that you don't have an individual heating on your homes, and they overheat their homes. Just the government does so much during the winter that we have to throw open the windows regularly. This is a normal thing in Moscow because it gets too warm in the homes, right? And so all I can say to the Europeans that wanted to make the Russian people suffer is enjoy the cold while I'm throwing open my windows.
Mark Sleboda, ladies and gentlemen, our rating champion. Later, Mark. He's the best, man. Fam, he's so awesome. Man, I remember when he responded back to me the very first time, a young combo couch, and Mark Sleboda said yes, and I was so excited to have him on. It's like his 6th or 7th time coming on. I mean, he talked about with us before the Ukrainian-Russian
Mhm.
situation, what was going on in the Donbass, what was going on with Victoria Noodleman and Jeffrey Pyatt, and kind of laid it on out. And it's so great to see him come back today, fam. It's awesome.
It is. Fam, do you want to go to Azerbaijan real quick since we were just talking about it?
Yeah, we can go to Azerbaijan. Guys, we have a lot of people hanging on out. We have about 425 hanging out on the YouTubes. That's great. Thank you so much for joining in on today. But over on the Rockfin, we only got about 70 right now. 60. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link to the Rockfin, guys. I want you to go over there as well. It's very important that we get the Rockfin up. Unfortunately, YouTube still has us demonetized. We can't make a few bucks over there. But if you go over to the Rockfin, it really helps us out with the algorithm. Maybe if you have a few extra bucks, you can get a subscription to the Combo Couch for $9.99 a month. If you pay for a whole year, you get a discount. Or if you want to leave a super ray, that always helps us out. But also, too, ladies and gentlemen, before we get going right into Azerbaijan, I want to point out that we still have this big trip coming up. We have a givesendgo.com/the Combo Couch Brazil. We've been working so goddamn much and so many things. This is going to be a very stressful, long, hard trip. We love to do this work. It's going to be amazing, but we definitely do need your help. This time we are going as journalists, so it's going to take a few bucks. So with your help, it would get our boots on the ground with our good friend Gloria. We're going to go light it on up. Camila Escalante from Kasachwan News is already on the ground. So we'll be meeting peeps there. We'll be doing the work that you always put us in position to do. So do us a favor, givesendgo.com/the Convo Couch Brazil. Hate to ask, but we need to do so. 74 people over there on the Rockfin. Fam, Azerbaijan. Let me grab it.
Yeah, you kind of already talked a little bit about it with Mark, so maybe we can just point out a couple things, fam. Sure. But you're absolutely right about Erdogan being an opportunist. Russia is to broker this peace deal. I mean, they've already brokered another peace deal and a mediation. And supposedly Armenia and Azerbaijan are going to be following this peace deal, are going to be sticking to it for now. Mark predicts that there might be a few more conflicts before they actually completely die down. Now, I do want to say I will share with you a package that I did soon that really deals with a 2019 RAND report. And this 2019 RAND report, which is verified and has been confirmed, really laid out 6 points and 6 ways that the West and NATO were going to attack Russia to undermine it and basically reduce its power. One of the ways was interfering and using conflicts in the Caucasus, also conflicts with Belarus and conflicts with Azerbaijan and Armenia, to try to turn some of these allies against Russia. Mostly these have failed, and I'll talk about those later. But Armenia and Azerbaijan conflict has been one of those ways that the West is trying to weaponize to sort of distract Russia, to really create more conflict for Russia itself. And as we all mentioned, Armenia and Russia are very well tied together. You know, the culture. I mean, the Armenians were at the military concert. Their military was there. Huge allyship. But of course, Russia is extremely diplomatic in many aspects, as we've seen even with Israel. They will do business with Azerbaijan as well.
Yep. So pretty much they have the ceasefire, and you can see the ex-Soviet countries have been locked in decades of an old conflict over the Nagorno-Karabakh region, which is part of Azerbaijan, but has been under control of the ethnic Armenian forces backed by Armenia since the separatist war ended in 1994. 2 years ago, they had that, and they had another ceasefire. But like Mark had talked about, they are dragging their feet, fam, on this whole situation. So it's kind of interesting to see what is going to happen. I also have this other article here I want to pull up really quick, because I did mention, fam, when all else fails, Pelosi, get your suit on, get in there, because Nancy Pelosi, and somebody did mention, I think it was a Tras, welcome to the show today, Tras, about Pelosi's going to be going over there and doing what Pelosi does. Fam, what are the odds that Nancy Pelosi brings Paul Pelosi with her to Armenia? Right here, Pelosi going to Armenia as the death toll rises in the Azerbaijan border fighting, which just had a ceasefire, and close to 200 troops just out of nowhere And Mark made the comment. He says, when mom is busy or at work or dad is not there, the kids go crazy. And that's what happened. And it seemed like Erdogan again, pushing buttons. And also, Azerbaijan thinking they can take a little bit territory at a time, death by 1,000 cuts. But there she is. She's going to be heading on over there as well. I think at the end of the day, like Mark said, they want to make sure that Armenia is pulled away from Russia's control and is now a complete, lackey of American, the American empire. Also, to be honest with you, fam, there's a lot of protests that are going on in France right now because there's a lot of Armenians in France. So, that is what's going on with the situation in Azerbaijan. I do want to show one other thing really quickly too, go ahead.
While you get that up, I just want to say, as you can see what Pasta pulled up with that article, Nancy Pelosi going to Armenia, and as Mark mentioned, the Armenian current leader is very pro-West, even though Russia and Armenia are huge allies. Well, that pretty much reemphasizes what I've been talking about in the RAND document coming into play here, because they are going to exploit the fact that this is a pro-Western leader in Armenia right now, and that is dangerous because that's exactly as we pointed out earlier, and as Pasta just said, they want to turn Armenia away from Russia, and that is a weapon that they're using, and you can see that with Nancy Pelosi's visit as well.
This is a protest going on in Vive la France, fam. So I'm going to play it real quick.
Et ce serait en ce sens, non seulement trahir nos valeurs, non seulement nous humilier, mais aussi creuser notre propre tombe. Car ces forces qui veulent aujourd'hui tuer la liberté en Arménie, au Karabakh, au Kurdistan, se tourneront un jour ou l'autre contre l'Europe pour tuer cette même liberté. Le moment est venu d'être courageux et lucide.
Fam, I just love it when I hear the Vive la France. But yeah, there's a lot of Armenians in France. So the French are now kind of, doing their thing as far as, sitting there and kind of backing the Armenians. It's a very complicated situation. I also want to point out right here as well that I've been seeing a lot of posts. I don't know if you guys can see it. I'm going to pull it up right now. Give me 2 seconds. Everything's working so damn slow today. Here we are.
Mercury's in retrograde.
I know, no shit. Is it this one? I think it
By
is.
Molt Chodhari?
Do you see it? Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, here it is. It shows like here it goes, like Armenia is saying like nobody's like paying attention to them. Everybody's all concentrating in the Ukraine, right? Everybody's funding the Ukrainians. But look at the Armenians. No support, fam. No support.
So did you see the attacks that the Azerbaijan people have done on Armenia? There was a woman that they cut her legs off, and they, I think they also cut her arm off. I mean, there's no pictures of that, but that they're committing war crimes against the Armenians. It's really, really nasty and brutal, and that's people are pointing out the hypocrisy, right? Like is the U.S. going to start funding Armenia with weapons to defend itself, right? And obviously, as Pasta showed in the picture, no, because again, the West is going to approach Armenia in a completely different way. They're going to try to approach it by turning it against Russia. So, yeah.
So this is how it started, how it's going, and this is something I mentioned, and Mark talked about it. And the EU is turning to more reliable energy suppliers. Today, I am in Azerbaijan to sign a new agreement. Our goal, double the gas delivery from Azerbaijan to EU in a few years, 6 to 10%, like he said, will be crucial. Azerbaijan will be a crucial partner for our security of supply and our way to climate neutrality. Ooh, look at that. Azerbaijan attacks Armenia along its eastern border regions. Strong explosions are heard in cities across the region. The attack started at midnight, and they're trying to draw some correlation, like I said, and that's why I had to ask Mark if there was any news there that there is some kind of like, okay, the EU is now getting a little bit more extra power and energy and gas and supplies from Azerbaijan. Maybe Azerbaijan will take that as a sign. Well, hey, man, maybe we can go get some more territory, and our friends in NATO and the EU will not object as much because, we just gave them some gas and oil. But it's just something, it's food for thought to think about. The whole situation with Russia being, kind of a little consumed. But I mean, once again, 10% of its troops, 15% of its troops, let's say it's 20% of its troops that they've committed to Ukraine. They have a strong base in Armenia. So they have already kind of broken another ceasefire. But, these are distractions. These are kind of taking away, resources away from Russia where they have to go deal with another situation. So they're going to have to get in there, and they're going to have to really kind of hunker down and get this peace agreement signed and get it done because you want me to get that last one, fam? Underneath
There's
from the bottom?
two.
All right.
There's two. Start with whichever.
You got it,
I'll
fam.
talk about it. No, you're absolutely right. And again, Armenia is going to be used to complicate things for Russia with this conflict. And that's the intention of the West and NATO. They want both of these countries actually to become NATO type of country. So now there it is. Our Armenian brothers and sisters should know that we'll be with them whenever they ask for our help. Iran stands with Armenia. So again, just showing these alliances here, you can see in Yerevan, Armenia, in Baku, Azerbaijan, you have the Israeli flag being pushed. Then you have in Armenia, you have the Iranian flag. What's going on right now? Well, there are Ukrainian troops in Israel, and seems to be a buildup of an alliance, another proxy war going down with Israel and Ukraine against Russia and Iran. Iran has been a loyal aid to Venezuela for a while. In fact, without Venezuela and without Russia, or without Russia and Iran, Venezuela wouldn't have gotten out of the economic situation that it was in. It still is, but it's definitely has improved very much so. And I was just with some Venezuelan comrades earlier who live here, and it's really amazing, that connection. But you can play it. It's dangerous what we're seeing here in terms of the geopolitics of it, right? It seems like things are escalating because you can see the alliances forming: Iran, Russia, Venezuela, China, the United States, Israel, Ukraine, NATO, the EU. I mean, that's pretty much where we're at right now. And it seems like it's not getting any better. So.
Well, fam, you got to say it right. You got to say China.
Sorry, yes, China.
Oh my God.
Yes, but MAGA loves China now. So we'll talk about that in a minute.
Oh, stop.
War crimes of the aggressor on the foreign territory of Armenia. So this is really bad. So this is what I was talking about. And I'm sorry, I didn't warning, guys. Be careful with some of these images. They're terrible. So if you can scroll up a little bit, I just want to read the text. So there was a woman and her finger was cut off and put in her mouth. She was stripped naked and killed. There have been multiple stories of women being targeted, being shot and killed in Armenia by Azerbaijan. And I do want to have a couple people to come on talk about what's going on in there. So I'm going to reach out to them as well. But this is really bad. It's really awful. And there's just so much going on in the Caucasus right now. And Armenia, Azerbaijan, Pasta mentioned, Serbia, right? And then of course Belarus, and these conflicts aren't going away. As Mark said, this has been, a lot of people have been fighting for a long time. So yeah.
444 people watching on the YouTubes. That's called sailboats when you play poker, fam. Trip Forest, love it. One of my favorite thing. I got to take that off there. That's just awful. That is just awful. That's what we are witnessing over there today. I'm going to read a couple super rays really quick to get them out of the way. Guys, thank you so much. 88 people. 88 fam 88 is snowmen. 2 8s, snowmen. We got snowmen over there. We got sailboats on the on the YouTubes. I'm going to go play poker maybe one of these days because that's just a sign. AREM! God, what AREM has done for independent media across the board. When the stories will be written 100 years from now, they will talk about a lone wolf named AREM who went there and supported these independent personalities so they can bring you people the truth and the stories out there that the mainstream media will refuse to recover. Remember thy name, AREM. And the funny thing is, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl or anything like that. I just know it's an AREM. You know, some people say, oh, it's Adam. Some people, Andrea, whatever it is. It's a blessing, and we appreciate you, AREM. It means the most to us. For those of you who cannot send a few bucks because you're strapped and everybody's tight and hurting for cash right now, we understand that, and we still love you. What you can do for us, though, is hit the like button, hit the share button, get it out there. Let's get the news going. Let's get us up in the algorithms. Today on Rumble, I could not get on. It would not let me. I spent 20 minutes messing with it, but I'll repost this on Rumble later. We'll be up on Rumble moving forward. Rockfin and YouTube. Unfortunately, YouTube is still keeping us in the penalty box, but we still want to make it grow, and we can make it grow with your help. So hi to everybody. We were sharing some of your comments as we were doing the interview with Mark Sleboda, Oz Whistles, Hugo Gutierrez. Atras is in the house. I got one of your comments up. Of course, Lucky Burrito. We love you, Gamer and Ganja for life. We love you too as well. Richard Sawaki, DC is in the house. DC, somebody said they were laughing like, oh my God, well, what's more stupid? Leftist libertarian or MAGA communism? Like saying that leftist libertarian never existed and wasn't true. It started as leftist libertarians. DC can tell you, as he was one of the heads of the caucus of the what do you call it? LibSoc party, Libertarian Socialist Parties, fam. They're there. Leftists are in the party. Time to come along. Keel Jones, Carrie Eaton, thank you so much. We love you guys. You guys are amazeballs. Come over and follow the Combo Couch whenever you can and get there. Fam, what do you want to go into next? Do you want to go into the railroads? Let's do the railroads.
Yeah, let's do the railroads real quick, guys, because people asked us to cover it, and we saw what was happening as well. So we got the behind the scenes of the railroad workers strike. Behind all of this, guys, it shows that there's an economic crisis in the United States, right? Because a lot of the times here in Russia, they're like, oh, the United States is benefiting from all of this, right? Like, I'm like, yes, guys, the United States is benefiting, but let's specify who's benefiting, because my people in the United States, the working class, the everyday person, the mother, the father, the student, the person working as a server, they're not benefiting shit from this war. Right. The people that are benefiting, let's be clear, the defense industry and the predator class, they're the ones benefiting from this war. That's it. End of story. So I want you to pay attention to the CNN clip, right? Because this is how they framed the strike when it was a potential strike. Notice how they blame the people who are going to strike. And by the way, they were mostly striking not just for wages and better pay and better conditions of work, but specifically for being able to have sick leave, because they were afraid if somebody got really sick, they were going to lose their job and how expensive it was going to be. And let me reiterate to you that every Russian and every resident of Russia gets healthcare. Mm-hmm. And they also get their schooling paid for, their education paid for. I'm not lying. You can look this up to their parts of a master's degree, by the way. It gets taken care of. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds quite interesting to me, coming in, because Russia's a capitalist country, like I said, but they have certain things that they know are beneficial to the working class. So I want people to know that, and see how things are here compared to what they are in the United States and what they tell you. So let's play this clip, fam, and look at the wonderful journalism by CNN.
I do want to point out that the companies that own these particular railroads, which are striking, are Berkshire Hathaway, which is a Warren Buffett company. And it was, like what Fam was saying, it was disgusting. It was a point system they've used. They've lost hundreds of employees since they've implemented this point system. And even you would lose points, like Fam said, if you had to go to the doctor, if you had to have to take a sick day. It made it almost ridiculous and impossible. And also the fact is that they got rid of a lot of employees that it was almost impossible to miss a shift because they had a lack of resources to replace somebody. God forbid something would happen. So we will play this clip, but it is kind of disgusting what's going on. A lot of people are not talking about this particular situation.
Oh yeah, let's play the clip. And by the way, yes, like she says, the last thing the economy needs is a strike. Okay.
Yeah, they blame the workers, right? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The White House is talking to unions and railroad companies to try to stave off what could be the first national rail strike in 30 years. Some 60,000 engineers and conductors could walk off the job as soon as Friday. It's not about money. Railroads have been hugely profitable during the pandemic. Unions are battling over personal time and scheduling rules, these rules that force engineers and conductors to be on call 7 days a week. A strike could mean more empty shelves, temporary factory closures, and of course, higher prices for consumers. The White House is talking to unions and railroad companies to try to stave off what could be the first.
So we're going to go a little bit more into this, but I did obviously want to point out that right away that this is how they frame it: a crisis railroad strike averted after marathon talks reached tentative deal. And initially, if I'm not mistaken, they had crisis averted. So unions and management reached a tentative deal yesterday, averting a freight railroad strike that had threatened to cripple U.S. supply chains and push prices higher for many goods. If you go and you look at Twitter, a lot of people were blaming the strikers, the railroad workers, saying, "Why are you doing this right now? Things are already bad." Guys, like it was a prime opportunity. Actually, we've talked about this ad nauseum. The way to really demand the government actually does something is to disrupt the supply chain. The way to start a general strike is really to disrupt the supply chain. So if the railroad workers actually go through with this, which I mean, tentatively, they're not going to because they've struck a deal, right? But if they were at some point to go through with this, if truckers decided to stop and demand XYZ, the economy would go to shit because we are so dependent on imports of everything. And we're so dependent on the food, right? Getting from here to there. In California, coming from California and agricultural sectors of the central part of the country going back and forth. Railroads supplying goods, food, etc. via train. It would disrupt entirely the supply chain. But it's not their fault that they're not getting basic conditions met. It's the system's fault. So perhaps the only way to force these politicians to pay attention is to disrupt it, right? And I think that is still the best way to do it. Now, the union, the deal made with the unions represented more than 50,000 engineers and conductors, and it was announced 5 a.m. Eastern time in a statement by the White House, calling it an important win for our economy and the American people. Right away, accolades were given to Joe Biden, by the way. And Joe Biden averted this crisis. I believe several progressives gave him accolades. A verbal agreement reached between the two sides was reached at about 2:30 a.m. That concluded about 20 hours of talks between the union leadership and the railroad's labor negotiators, hosted by Labor Secretary Marty Walsh. And they were there forever. President Joe Biden called in personally to talk to negotiators at around 9 p.m. Eastern Wednesday. And Biden stressed that catastrophic harm could come to families, businesses, and communities if the rail system shut down. Sources within the unions were giving Biden's call credit for helping to get the deal completed without a strike. We're very proud of what was accomplished, said Jeremy Ferguson, president of the Conductors Union and one of the leaders involved in the marathon session. He thanked Biden and Labor Department officials involved in the talks of the deal. As always, union leadership, guys, is not anywhere near to the union, the people, right? The people that are actually experiencing what they're experiencing. Oftentimes, the union leadership are the ones that bend over and take deals and stuff. So basically, They say it's a win for workers, railroads, and the economy. I mean, this is how they're framing it, right? So this is what it does. The deal gives the union members an immediate 14% raise with backup pay dating back to 2020 and raises totaling 24% during the 5-year life of the contract that runs from 2020 through 2024. It gives them cash bonuses of $1,000 a year. Woohoo. All told, the back pay and earlier bonuses will give union members an average of $1,100 payment per person once the deal is ratified. That's somewhat substantial to a degree. But remember, they weren't just fighting for that. Few other details of the deal have yet so far been made public, but the statement from Biden indicated the major sticking point involving work rules and scheduling issues that had brought the country within a day of its first national rail strike in 30 years had been addressed in the union's favor. So supposedly they addressed that, and we'll see, because it's still tentative, right? This still could be an issue. But of course, the dispute was about staffing shortages and scheduling rules that union leaders said brought their membership to a breaking point. The unions say the railroads have been requiring their members to be on call and ready to report on short notice as often as 7 days a week. And they would not accept a contract without changes to those work rules. And the union said the deal provides one additional paid day off a year, as well as protections against discipline if they need time off to attend to routine and preventative medical care, as well as exemptions from attendance policies for hospitalizations and surgical procedures. Shouldn't that be a given? That if you are having surgery or are sick, that might.
Fam. No, fam.
You want me to come and work with
you didn't use your day, yes. If you didn't use your days,
oh my God.
You don't have any existing points. It's a point system. You have to. Sorry, then you lose your job, and that's it. But I mean, it's not the fact. And here's the thing: there will be people that will have to go and take off because they're sick or do what they have to do, and they will be allowed to do so, and the boss will make an exception, but it's more of a deterrent. 85, 90% of the people who have to go do something won't even report that they need to do it and not do it. You know what I'm saying? It's so the point system is more of a deterrent from it's like don't ask your mom or your dad for anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they avert you from even going and asking. It's a deterrent, and it's really disgusting the way they do this to these railroad workers. And if this strike did happen, it would have been like, what's going on? And really, what did they get at the end of the day? The extra $1,000. Ooh, $11,000 more. And they loosened up on these just overreaching friggin'. I mean, these rules are like fascist.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like, come on.
It wasn't a huge win.
No,
it wasn't a huge win. But
that's the thing. Back around too.
Yeah, it's not for sure they're not going to strike again, right? Because they're not going to strike. Period. Because it has to pass by everybody, but also if the conditions go back, or if the conditions aren't enough, people are going to come back and try to do this again. And I just wanted to point out something too. This is one of several strikes or attempted strikes that have been going on recently since like 2020, right? So remember the 10,000 members of the United Auto Workers union at a farm equipment maker, John Deere, who went on strike last fall, like a year ago. And then they stayed on strike after rejecting a deal. And then after 5 weeks, they went back to work. That was a big deal as well. And then there was a Kellogg's strike that also rejected a deal, and then stayed on strikes until agreeing for a deal eventually. Film production workers as well were on strike, bargained with a deal, and instead of going on strike, and so they avoided a strike. And then so there's so many of them. There's a lot of things that have been happening. I want to point out that points to a system that's not working, right? Because when you have all these different, it's not just one sector of the economy, it's all over. You got the production, the film, you got you got farmers also, you got the auto workers, Kellogg's workers, you have the many in the grocery stores too, in recent years as well. And then of course you have the railroad workers as well. You can tell the system isn't working for these people, right? And a lot of these people represent all sides of the aisle, right? They don't just represent the left. They don't just represent the right. They represent everything in between, and everything, perhaps aside from it, because a lot of people aren't even political. This doesn't mean, just because they're union people doesn't mean they're political in the way we see it as political. It is a political position, but it doesn't mean that they're, you know, hardcore Republicans or liberals either. These are conditions, working conditions that people are experiencing. And what we're seeing is more and more people really suffering from the system. It's just clearly not working, guys.
And
it's
also
clearly
too,
not
I
working.
don't want to get away, fam, from the fact is that, you know, we make these deals. There's a deal that was been made between the union, the railroad, the Congress stepped in, whatever the case may be. This is technology that's back from the 1960s. We're still so far behind.
Yeah.
Maybe we should use this as a time to strike and then get all new type of infrastructure in, like high-speed rail and more economical and faster traveling ways. It's like we're still fighting for an old system. It's like we're making sure the buggy and the whip are still involved in our culture. Fam, Ed O'Keefe disagrees with you, fam. He said there's a deal. POTUS, Biden announces a deal between railroad companies and unions to avoid a national strike. These rail workers will get better pay, improved working conditions, and peace of mind around their healthcare cost, all hard earned, fam.
So Brandon is taking the credit for all of this, right? And you guys can see that's the White House. So you guys can see the statement by our dark Brandon there. The tentative agreement reached tonight is an important win for the economy and the American people. This is bullshit. It is a win for tens of thousands of railroad workers who worked tirelessly through the pandemic to ensure America's families and communities got deliveries of what have kept us going during these difficult years. Who wrote this? This is really bad, right? These rail workers will get better pay, improved working conditions, and peace of mind around their healthcare costs, all hard earned. Joe Biden, they should have healthcare, period. You know how, you know, in Russia, people automatically like get like more sick days than they do in the United States. I get 28 days of pay time off. You get 2 weeks in the United States.
You got to remember, it says here, I am grateful for the hard work that Secretaries Walsh, Buttigieg, Buttigieg, and Visalak, and the NEC Director Deese put into reaching this tentative agreement. I especially want to thank Secretary Walsh for his tireless around-the-clock efforts that delivered a win for the hardworking people of the U.S. rail industry. As a result, we will keep Americans on the job and in all industries in the country that are touched by this vital industry, fam-a-lam-a-lam.
You don't know Jack. Guys, do you notice
you
that
don't know
was just
Jack,
like
Jack.
That was just a statement made to pat themselves on the back? I mean, that's all it was. I mean, what? Oh, we care about the people. We did this. We did this. Like, let's lavish ourselves a little bit further with more compliments, right? It's disgusting. You know, we already know what these people do. We don't need to go into that. But yeah, this is just, it's just bad. And so we just wanted to say the deal was made. We'll see what happens. But guys, behind all of that, again, the things aren't hot for the United States right now, right? Inflation. I was telling Russians yesterday that we have an epidemic, the houselessness epidemic, right? The crisis that is homelessness. And they were like, they couldn't believe that there was just homeless people everywhere. In Russia, I've seen like 2 or 3 people, and most of the time it's people that are drunk or addicted, like to drugs of some sort, right? And they go and they put them in these areas, they get them help, and that's what they do. There's no tents, there's no makeshift, like none of that. I could walk around. What time is it? It's 11:50. I could wait till 3-4 o'clock in the morning, go outside and walk around by myself as a woman, and I'll be fine. Literally. I have never felt safer anywhere in my, can you imagine, Pasta, if I went around downtown LA, started walking by myself at like 3 a.m.?
No way. No
like,
way. Can't do
it.
Can't do it.
So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, Russia has almost overdo it with some of the stuff, because like they'll put like a giant what is it, like a security guard, but you know, a bouncer type of guy, like really tall and big, in like a mall, like at a mall. They're like everywhere. They're like any sort of store that has any prestige has like these security. They're kind of overdo it a little bit, in my opinion, but there's security everywhere. Like they just have people there watching. There's like nothing is dirty, everything is clean. And talking about railroads, the metro here is awesome, and the railway system that I've used to go to St. Petersburg, amazing. They give you food with your ticket, even a basic economy ticket. They have like a bathroom. You can go. There's like eating areas. We don't have that stuff. I mean, the Amtrak is supposed to be good, but most people can't even afford the Amtrak. It's actually more expensive to use the Amtrak than it is to get a flight. So I honestly, I don't get it. I don't get it. I think these are all excuses. They're screwing you people. They're turning you against Russians when they don't even give you what the Russians here get. Like they get healthcare, they get education paid. Why don't you just move to Russia and get free education? I don't know, because that's, I mean, it also not just Russia, but all the countries they say are brutal dictatorships, right? Even China, you got Nicaragua, you got Venezuela, you got these Cuba, right? Where you can go study medicine and it's free. Like it's essentially, you're not in debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I don't know, guys. I mean, forget your ideology, leave it at the door, but those are the facts. Those are the facts.
Okay, let's get to this subject right now because it's going to get a little touchy. I told you the other day, you this morning that I was really, really upset about it. And it was one of the reasons why I got involved with politics hardcore. What was going on our southern border and just the kind of rhetoric coming from people here in the United States about not wanting these people to come here. It's very confusing as an Italian American when you hear the stories. You know, you've all seen The Godfather, how people came here. You know what I'm saying? How the Italians, they came in wops without papers. That's what they were called. But seeing a lot of people nowadays, this generation going, we can't have these people come here. You know, a lot of progressives always would blame patriots that they were being racist. A lot of patriots would claim that we just don't have the resources here. However, this particular situation is what drove me from having a little bit of understanding of foreign policy to get more involved, because I couldn't understand why nobody was focused on why these people are coming in the first place. And when you study foreign policy, you understand that they do come here because of what's going on in their country. And we've gotten a chance to go to places like Nicaragua, Honduras, Peru, Colombia now, Mexico and whatnot. And Honduras is the one that really hit home. We had a lot of people who told us that in 2017, when the Americans, including the Trump administration, had stepped into their business and supported Juan Orlando Hernandez in their election, that was so fraudulent that even the OAS said had to be redone. They stepped in and supported Juan Orlando Hernandez because he was their little puppet drug dealing CIA cuck of sorts and cool with the Trump administration. So with that being said, we had spoke to people from Honduras who said, yeah, my friends went to the United States because they said, hey, if you're going to get involved with our business, then we're going to come there. If you're going to destabilize our country, then we're going to go there. There's a history of coups for a couple decades now, fam, if not over a century. I mean, you can go over a century right now. We've been having coups, a lot of coups, especially in Latin America. We all know about the Iran-Contra scandal, where the CIA actually sold cocaine coming out of Colombia, putting it on the streets of New York and LA, turning it into crack, taking that money, buying weapons and selling them, or just giving them, to the Contras who were fighting the Sandinistas and actually flaming and getting involved in a civil war. Same type of civil war that happened in El Salvador, same type of war that happened in Chile, same type of civil war that happened in Guatemala when we removed the socialist government because they had nationalized the fruit over there, and we wanted the UFC to have money. So by destabilizing these countries, extracting their resources for penny on the dollars, and forcing them to use our monetary system by using austerity measures and through IMF loans, keeping them pretty much in economic shackles, there's a reason why we have a mass amount of migration coming up this way. And the fact is, regardless of what you heard somebody say, oh, that people, everybody knows. No, nobody knows. Nobody talks about it. I'm with my mom here. This is a very touchy subject and touchy situation, but she did something for me today that it was a breakthrough. And she said, she came in, she sat down, she goes, Craig, I don't want to fight with you about the whole border situation anymore. I just see a lot of homeless people and veterans on the streets, and I don't understand why we can't take care of them. But you're saying that a lot of these people are driven here because of our actions, then I want to learn more about it. But we're never told this. We never know this. And we're told that a lot of those military men are actually helping the citizens of those countries against the gangsters that are trying to kill them, like MS-13 and whatnot, and all those situations. So she was really open for the first time to come down today and say, I'll learn, because, fam, I can tell you that in this country, a lot of friends I have, a lot of conservatives, the way they're treating this whole migration situation, it's just so naive, so careless. And at the end of the day, my heart bleeds for these people who come up here, who make this journey. If you could just imagine why somebody would make that crazy journey coming from the North Triangle, come to the United States, what they had to go through in their own country. At one point in El Salvador, going back about 20 years ago, 10 people were dying every day because of bloody gang wars back there, from the situation that we had caused. And we were funding a lot of these oppositions, just like we're doing right now in the Ukraine. We fund these oppositions and we actually propagate and prop up war. And it's just awful. So regardless of what you hear, when people go, everybody knows, nobody talks about it, nobody admits it. And that's why seeing this situation is really, really hard when we're using these migrants as pawns. I don't know if everybody saw this, but this is the new thing that's been going on right now. Governor DeSantis sends 2 plane loads of illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyards, fam. I'm going to let you just kind of give your opinion, because I've been talking for a good little piece over here. But they actually took migrants, most of them coming from Venezuela, put them on a plane and sent them to Martha's Vineyards. And the attitude is from these governors, like Governor Abbott, Governor DeSantis, who's doing this, is like, okay, you liberals want open borders, and you're the reason why they're coming here. They're actually going out there saying that the reason why people are coming here is because Biden's saying, come here, we have open borders. They're really trying to sell this stuff, fam. And to see these people being used as pawns is just disgusting, because nobody's talking about them and their story.
Right. So, okay. So what's happening is the right is saying, this is amazing. DeSantis is so cool. He's literally sending these illegals to Martha's Vineyard to show the liberals that they're dumb, because, you know, the progressive sanctuaries areas, right, are New York, California, Florida, but Florida, which is weird because Florida's kind of like, it was a purple state. It goes back and forth. But like they're Miami in particular in Florida, right? You get a lot of influx of immigrants, certain parts of Texas as well, but they don't talk about that. But the progressive cities, particularly California and New York, that's where the cities are. And so what happens is DeSantis is being propped up by the right for doing this and showing sort of a tit for tat. Oh, look what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, the other people are like, hey, why don't you just send them back to where they came from? Like, just send them back to where they came from. And the liberals are all like, oh my gosh, you know, DeSantis is sending migrants here, illegal immigrants. Like, what is he doing? He's showing off and blah, blah, blah. So you have this like back and forth against this issue. But the reality is none of these people care. They're being politicized. These immigrants are being politicized and used to score political points. These are human beings. And these are people that are mostly people from areas that the United States has had in the CIA, and of course, their minions through the national security state apparatus have pushed regime change in these countries, have pushed sanctions, have pushed conditions and created conditions where these people either can't live in their country anymore or can't take the time to remain there until the situation gets better. We know this because we travel to all those countries, as Pasta has mentioned. And particularly, I will not forget when it was 2016, 2017, the caravans that were coming in from through Tijuana, they were a lot of them from Honduras. And of course, we know that the United States conducted a coup there in 2009 with Manuel Zelaya, who we got to meet recently when we were at Honduras when his wife was running for president, Xiomara Castro. So for us, this is like, we know what the United States did. We know why these conditions are there. We know what happened. And as these countries are trying to rebuild and pushing away from Western hegemony, you have a bunch of morons saying these people are compromised. This guy isn't good enough. This guy is funded by the NED. And you have all these idiots saying that when they've never been to these countries and they haven't seen how people are so happy to have elected people like Gustavo Petro, to have elected people like Xiomara Castro. Are they as radical as I would like them to be? No. But the people of those countries elected them. So when I see cheap political points being thrown out with DeSantis and with others saying, well, trying to kind of give red meat to the Republicans. So that's my whole thing with this whole MAGA communism pasta, and I'm going to hand it over to you, is to me, it seems like we are trying to turn ourselves into something that it's not, to try to placate to a certain demographic rather than tell the demographic the truth. And talk about the economic situation and of course, the military and political situations that come into play and why people are coming here. If we're just going to say, yeah, send them back, please tell me, how is that educating people? How is that coming to an understanding as to the history of how we got here in this moment? Yeah, it just seems like red meat to me.
It is red meat. It's total red meat, because anybody who's having this conversation immediately, if you're an anti-imperialist, you should be saying right away, well, these people wouldn't come here if we didn't destroy their country. They have every right to come here if we're in their country, stealing their resources and thrusting our monetary system on there. And we'll get to Jackson and Haas in just a bit, but because of their bullshit, because when you say that everybody knows, no, nobody knows. They don't know. The patriots I talk to, they hear about these things. They've heard about the Iran-Contra scandal, but they don't realize to what degree we do these things, forcing people to come here. Now, I don't want to just single out the right here, because the right playing these games, showing the left, okay, let's see how they are. The left has their own problems, fam, too, as well, because they never recognize our foreign policy. What do I mean? You can start by removing that Ukrainian flag in your bio, because this is the type of behavior that we're talking about that you completely ignore all the time. You go, oh, my God, when they're here, we got to let them there. These Trumps are being racist. But aren't you being racist kind of in a backdoor way when you're not recognizing the fact that the people that you are backing are the ones like the Obama administration with Hillary Clinton that removed Manuel Zelaya in the middle of the night in his pajamas to destabilize that country, thrusting Juan Orlando Hernandez in there? And people, we were there in that country. You don't know how badly they wanted to get rid of that narco-trafficker government. Was it narco-trafficker? Is that how they said it, fam?
Trafficking.
Yeah.
Are you thinking in Spanish? Narcotraficante.
Yeah. See, that's what they would say. They would all say that they wanted Juan Orlando Hernandez out of there. They wanted their own national sovereignty, and we should give it to them. As far as Boric, and I keep on saying he's a third-party candidate. Well, Mr. Haas, anytime you want to go one-on-one, baby, we can do that too as well. We know that Jackson and Haas aren't going to come our way. They avoid debates that they could possibly lose. This ain't Vosh and Destiny over here, pals. This is Fee.
It's not Norton either.
All right. So please, we know you avoided a debate with Whitney Webb. We're here waiting now. Okay. But, Haas went and was playing this little video that showing that Macron was a third-party candidate, globalist, whatnot. Yeah, Macron was his party that he started in 2016 was a break-off of the freaking Socialist Party, okay, that had been around since the 1960s. Hardly even comparison there, buddy, but that's okay. You know what I'm saying? The point is, if the people want these leaders there, and they know all about these NGOs are infested in this country. They're all over the place. That was the one thing that I think really kind of surprised us. I don't know, fam, when we were in Honduras and we said, well, what are you going to nationalize as soon as you take power? They're like, oh, we're not going to nationalize anything. Yeah. We're just going to open up for business. They understand they are walking on eggshells. They have military bases in their own country. How many times do we got to say this? And it's so, and let me ask you a question. If these people are compromised, if Francia Marquez is compromised because she's done business with the USAID, same with Petro and everything like that, what about Trump? What about Trump's relationship to Roy Khan? What about Trump's relationship to Big Pharma, Johnson & Johnson? What about Trump's relationship to the Saudis and all his business over there? At what degree is a person compromised for you, Team Sports Haas, that they're not compromised in the global South, right? Only China socialism is good enough for you? The Latin Americans socialism is good to you? All your connections to Trump when you praise left and right, now you're doing the YMCA with the cigar and everything like that. Please. I mean, at what point is your guys not? Everybody is compromised to a degree, especially in the global South when you're working when the devil is sitting in the room.
Yeah,
I've
but
already
it's hard for
explained
people
this.
to grasp that who have never had to endure any sort of hardship to that level and who don't go to these countries unless it's on vacation. And the reality is, and I mean that's the reality, right? I mean, and another thing is pasta, and I think this also plays into that too. We've been in the service industry, right? We've seen people from the service industry, how hard they work, immigrants, all of them. By the way, there wouldn't be a Southern California culture if it wasn't for the people that live there, that come from all these Central American countries. There wouldn't be the food. There wouldn't be the, literally, like, not just restaurants. I'm talking about like the agriculture. There wouldn't be any of that. And the thing is, it's not as easy to just say send them back. By the way, liberals aren't advocating for open borders right now. That is something that in Europe, there are sectors that advocate for that advocate for open borders. Kamala is on record saying, do not come. Do not come. They're not advocating for open borders. What they're doing is they're blaming each other back and forth. While the right says, okay, we're going to have more measures, we're going to have more of the ICE out, sending these people back, hunting them down. And we've seen how that goes. It's pretty disgusting how they like go at these people, especially Haitians, by the way. And so that's what the right does. The Democratic Party, what they do is they invest in technology and surveillance, and they say, oh, we're not going to build a wall, but we're going to go after people through the mechanisms of technology, find them via every single aspect. People live in fear. And, you know, especially as a Latin American who has had family that didn't necessarily have the right papers at the right time. Seeing a lot of Westerners really talk about this stuff and give these ignorant, just flat out ignorant reports is really just American exceptionalism. Still, it's the same type of behavior that I see with Anthony Blinken, with NATO, with neocons like Bolton. It's the same type of behavior. You're just coming at it from a different way. And I'm just really, you know, it really does piss me off. And I share with you like the anger, because a lot of people listen to some of these people for whatever fucking reason, especially younger people. And the information you're getting is wrong. You're getting the wrong information, and your information purveyors are people who have no idea what the hell is going on in these countries. Zero. And I'm not saying that just because we do. Talk to anybody else that's actually been on the ground, like to any of our friends that have been. And you know, really, it doesn't have to be us, but they won't. They won't. And that's the issue.
Sam, this whole it's Soros and it's all these. It's equivalent to getting a fucking Q drop. It really is. That's what it is. They're spreading Q information, and then we see the playoff on like, well, you know, why don't you just send them back? And now you have all over mainstream conservative media, right? All over it.
Costa, you're such a liberal for saying that about Q.
Oh, God. I know, right? All over the mainstream conservative media. That's all they're talking about. These immigrants here. What are they going to do with them? DeSantis is sending them to Martha Vineyards. They talked to Carrie Lake. She would have sent them back. Our friend makes a tweet. Oh, my. And then, governors can't make the decisions on NAFTA and this and that. If you're a governor of a state, and you're dealing with illegal immigration or undocumented workers, whatever you want to pronounce it, whatever you're getting, you should be screaming about why they are coming in the first place. As a governor, you have a platform to say, cut it out, guys. Quit funding all these fucking NGOs down there that are going to overturn these government and essentially send people here to my state. Okay?
But DeSantis is fighting communism.
Yeah, please.
And you know what I mean? Doing. So... Yeah. But that's the thing, like someone like DeSantis isn't going to do that, because as much as people want to build him up a lot, you know, as this, he's the next Trump, he's going to be the guy, he's the one that could take us out of this. He's literally going to be worse in terms of interventionism, because he's already set pretty much clearly that he doesn't believe that the countries in the global South are doing the right thing. He's waged a war on communism. So I have a really weird I have a hard time understanding how that's going to somehow merge with the complete opposite ideology. I just don't get it.
Well, he said too that we've let this problem go on for too long. We let Cuba go on for too long, Venezuela, and that's why Nicaragua's acting up. And he's getting this attitude. And he's got, Cruz and Rubio and Menendez and all these other gusanos here in Florida just puffing up their chests, ready to get down into the global South and remove those dictators and spread their democracy. But here's the left, fam. The latte liberals, right? The ones who are like, oh my God, we can't treat them that way. Well, let's see what's happened when they go to Martha Vineyards and they're in their own house, in their own territory. Take a look.
So
what are the most difficult challenges right now?
The difficult challenges are we have, at some point in time, they have to move from here to somewhere else, right? We don't have the services to take care of 50 immigrants. And we certainly don't have housing. We're in a housing crisis as we are on this island. And so we can't house everyone here that lives here and works here. We don't have housing for 50 more people. So
what are the most difficult?
Okay, so
Bam, housing crisis in fucking Martha's Vineyards. Go ahead.
You don't have a housing crisis in Martha's Vineyard, honey. You have a housing crisis in the entire country. Yeah. In the entire fucking country. And why do we have that housing crisis? Why can't we take care of our own? Like, oh, it's not because of the immigrants. It's not like, and this is, I'm sure, what you would say to your mom, right? It's not like, okay, the taking care of immigrants is going to take away from taking care of our own. We don't take care of our own anyway. So what the hell? Like, we don't take care of our own. That's the fucking problem. It's because this country is spending billions and billions of dollars on war and on the defense industry and on filling the pockets of all these motherfucking corporations and politicians. And literally everybody else gets nothing. So much so that people don't understand how bad it is here, how bad it is in the United States. Like even in Russia, people don't understand that it's that bad because all the media that they get besides the, RT or besides other media that really shows them what's going on. And even RT sometimes doesn't really understand the domestic, issues that the United States has. It is really bullshit, right? They get like, oh, the West is great. They see DC, they see New York, they see LA, the pretty movies and all of that, but they don't see how most people live. So no, the United States people aren't getting taken care of, but that's irrelevant to immigrants coming in here. Immigrants are coming in here because we're screwing their countries abroad. And simultaneously, while doing that, they're screwing you in the United States. They're screwing every single one of you. They're driving you to completely being nothing but a person that lives to work for an apartment that you don't even get to be in because you're so busy working. So you barely get to be in your apartment, but you have to work so you can get an apartment to be in because otherwise, and you can't buy homes because BlackRock has bought everything for everybody. And it's getting harder and harder for anybody to own a home. And it's getting harder for people to own anything, own cars or whatever. And so more and more people are becoming houseless. And more people, what happens when poor people have less and less? They blame their neighbor. Instead of looking here, they're all like, oh, these immigrants, oh, this motherfucker, or that Republican or that liberal, whatever the hell may be. So I don't understand how creating these type of just like ridiculous, just showmanship type of cultish type of bullshit is helping anybody, especially when it's using actual it's just not it's not right. Like the facts that you're supposedly saying are just invalid.
Yeah. I'm going to get some research done to find out exactly how much money we spend with all these NGOs down in the global South. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna figure out that. So, by the way, right, and this same government that sent Ukraine billions, they don't take care of their own. From our good friend Phoenix fam, we spoke to him on the phone yesterday. He said to say what's up. He's doing well. He's actually living in the church, so right near Echo Park. We love him. We love you, Phoenix.
We love you, Phoenix.
We miss you, and that's it. And how about this one, fam? Do they have yacht parking spots for their immigrants out there in Martha's Vineyards? So Martha's Vineyard. Single. Somebody corrected me. Fam, I want to bring this one up over here because over 1,000 migrants were dropped out outside of Kamala Harris's home. and this was just such red meat for the, once again, for the, and to be honest with you, I there's something really fishy about the immigrants they did drop off. Some of the people they chose to speak, I will show you some stuff because it seems like they were coached to say these things. But you can
Yeah.
see over 100 illegal immigrants. They have to call them illegal immigrants rather than undocumented workers, but that's their business. Picked up at Eagle Pass, Texas, where they were dropped off outside of Kamala House residence at the Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C. on Thursday. So they did Martha Vineyard, and they did this one too as well. You can see right here, 2 migrant buses from Texas arrive outside of Kamala Harris's house.
So yeah, I mean, this just screams theater to me, right? They're just taking these people, using them for political ploy, putting them outside of these politicians' houses to say, "Oh, look, this is your problem because you allowed them." Hello, this is a U.S. problem. This is the foreign policy problem of both parties. Neocons and neoliberals are both in agreement when it comes to interventionism. Do you not see what Biden's doing right now? It doesn't
You want
matter.
open borders. You're a liberal. You want open borders. This is what you want right here. And the border is open. The reason why they're coming here, because Joe Biden told them to come here. Now, the border is open, and this is Benny Coleman sharing it. Benny Johnson, excuse me, showing this one. I'd like to show you guys this one because tell me if this doesn't seem fishy over here. Tell me if this doesn't watch. Look at.
Is it playing? Fam, is it playing?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't hear it. Weird. It's not moving for me.
Oh, my bad. It's my bad. I know what I did here. Let me play it from here.
Vice President Harris said that the border is closed. Is the border closed? Do you believe that the border is closed or is it open?
It's open, not closed. The border is open.
The border is open. Do you believe that all the migrants believe that the border is open?
Yeah, everybody believes that the border is open. It's open because we enter, we come in free. No problem.
But it's open for you to come illegally, right?
Illegally, yes, illegally. That's true.
And you came illegally.
Yeah, we came illegally, not legal.
Fam, I'm gonna call bullshit. I'm gonna call bullshit because we've been dealing with people who are undocumented for a long, long time in LA. They never will ever admit that and tell you that.
No,
this is like so fucking staged.
You could get arrested, not just deported, but like fined for and jailed for committing a crime. You don't just get sent back, and like he's openly admitting to a journalist, reporter on Fox that this is what's happening. And somehow they picked a person that happens to speak okay English and gives them all the talking points that are just red meat to the right. Do you guys see but I thought, when we criticize propaganda, you got to criticize propaganda, whether it comes from Fox or CNN, guys. It doesn't matter. It's still propaganda. Just because Tucker Carlson is better than most at showing anti-imperialist voices doesn't mean that Fox News doesn't do propaganda either. Like that, it's clearly because and you could literally, we were just in Mexico, right? We went to Tijuana with our friends, and what were they at the border protesting? The sanctions, the blockade on Cuba, and some of the people couldn't even come to that coalition of workers, right? That was going on along with the People's Summit. They couldn't even come because they weren't allowed in the country. And you're going to tell me that randomly we have open borders. And that's also what pisses me off about Tulsi Gabbard too. She's been pushing this whole week, the United States doesn't have controlled borders. Yes, they do. Yes, they fucking do. We have controlled borders. We don't have open borders. I know that for a fact. Based, like I said, on some family members, I know that for a fact. Okay. You're not going to tell me that we have open borders. We know, we've been to the border. It's a whole process for people who work, let's say they work in LA or San Diego, right? San Diego, and they live in Tijuana to cross back and forth. That it's a whole fucking process. It's not easy. And that's just for people who come in and out. It's not an open border type of situation. And in fact, several friends of mine have been stopped even from their car via other areas along the border, and they've been checked just because they looked like a Latino or something. They were like, "Oh, okay, just can you pull out your passport and blah blah blah." And it's ridiculous. We have what they use the open border thing to, the right uses it to criticize the liberals, and the liberals, of course, make themselves like the ones that care about immigrants. We know that they don't. We know they literally push the same foreign policy. So
Yeah, people die crossing all the time. Thank you so much for pointing that out, Hugo Gutierrez. Fam, by the way, just in case before we get to this last part of the section, because I do want to emphasize that this whole, and I spoke to my mother about it. I speak to some people over there the other day. They all say the same reason. Why are people coming here? And I live in my mother lives in a Boca Raton over here, nice area, whatnot. Well, they're coming here because Biden said they could come. That's what they're saying right now. Biden said it was coming.
Yeah.
So now they're coming in droves. I'm like, people were coming in droves when Trump was there, when Obama was there, when Bush was there, when Clinton was there, when Nixon was there, when Reagan was there. They've always come because it's always been destabilized. But anyway, just by the way, Kamala heard that it was her bus outside of her house with the immigrants, and she came running out. So please take a look at this, fam. Here's Kamala coming, recognizing her bus. Here she is.
Look at my bus! Oh my God, I love it!
El grito ranchero es lo más mexicano, más que los muertos.
Look at my bus! Oh my God, I love it!
El grito ranchero es lo más mexicano, más que los muertos.
And the worst part is Kamala has actually posed with Border Patrol. She's literally Kamala the Cop Harris. I mean,
Yeah.
She literally has told people to not come here. I don't understand. Like, what are you guys? It's just a back and forth. It's theater pasta, because none of these people want these immigrants here. And look, we're not saying that the United States has all the money in the world to help immigrants, right? Because guess what? They're not going to they don't give it to you. They're definitely not going to use any resources to help them. And and I understand why people get mad. They're like, well, we don't have anything. Yeah, don't get mad at these people. Get mad at your government for destabilizing these nations and creating an influx of people and continuing to do it right now with what they're doing in Ukraine, with what they did to Afghanistan, and what they've done to all these countries in West Asia and in the Central Asia. And they continue to do it. Look what they're trying to do in Taiwan. They're trying. And by the way, look at the difference in response on both ends of the spectrum, by the way. When it comes to Ukrainian refugees, who the United States says, hey, we're gonna raise money to house Ukrainians, right? Remember the dude that took in a Ukrainian woman as a refugee and left his wife for the Ukrainian woman? Oh, we're gonna. I rented out an Airbnb to house Ukrainians. Remember when the conflict broke out? And people were going on Twitter and Facebook and saying, I'm willing to house Ukrainians. What are you willing to do? Ask me why that doesn't happen with Palestinians, with Latin Americans, people from Central America, Haitians that have been rejected from Canada and the United States. Both, by the way, Haiti is one of the countries that the United States has militarily intervened in more ways than just so many other countries, constantly intervened. So how does that work? I'm just confused. Where are the Airbnbs for all these illegal aliens?
Yeah.
Where I just want to know, where are what about the people in Armenia? Where are all the Airbnbs for the people in Armenia? No, just the Ukrainians. We got to go and protest and put our little Ukrainian flag and say we're going to take care of them. I'm just, I just don't get it. And it's just so easy for people to ignore all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, this is the last part of this section. I just want to point out because it is something that is really pissed me off. I had to speak up on it. Yet I didn't want to. And it says, if the GOP governors like DeSantis and Abbott want illegal immigrants out of the U.S., why are they sending them deeper into the suburbs of the Midwest? This is something that Carrie Lake said. Now, this topic right now, I'm bringing this up because it is dominating mainstream media, conservative TV right now. That's all they're showing, and people are cheering them on as they're sending them to different parts of the state. And then you got some hardliners go, "Oh, I would send them back if they truly care about protecting American families from potentially violent migrants. Why not send them back across the border?" That doesn't seem like something that was written by somebody who's an anti-interventionist or an anti-imperialist of sorts. And I said, or we can talk about why these people came here in the first place. This is just more distractions from the talking points about the actual issue. Maybe if we pointed out the big reason that they are here is due to American intervention, we can actually start to fix the problem. You know, I had to get into this, fam. I'm going to let you speak right now, but it just blew my fucking mind that we saw this here. That's like a neoconservative goddamn. I mean, you would hear that on the Bannon show or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, why don't we send them back if they're potentially violent criminals? I mean, go ahead.
Right. So again, pushing the narrative that all these people coming here are violent migrants. Where's the data for that? You're giving. I mean, are you really? Is the MAGA communism trying to be MAGA though? Because I don't come at this like you know, like I said, Mitch, I don't come at this like Ben Norton. I don't say, hey, you're a fascist. You're not going to get that from me. I don't believe that sort of criticism is valid, right? Because we can't call people who disagree with us fascists just because they disagree with us. But the reality is that is a very like, where are you getting this information? All these people are violent. Didn't Donald Trump get criticized for that, right? Didn't Donald Trump get criticized and called all sorts of names because he was pushing this idea of these people from shithole countries are violent migrants and blah, blah, blah. Well, it's kind of weird to me that we're saying the same thing, right? From these, from that. And also, I gotta point that out. This is coming from a well-off or whatever, wealthy, young 22-year-old, well, 23, from Orange County, California. It's like the most Orange County we got, guys. It's like the whitest area in Southern California. And it's, you know, it's a wealthier area. It doesn't look good, okay, on the aesthetics. Like, it just doesn't. Why are you saying this? Where's your information that these people are all violent? And why are you just simply saying send them back? Why don't we find a discussion as to, okay, well, you can send them back, but then why are they here? Pasta's 100% right. Why did these people come? You know, a cool tweet would have been, hey, if we wouldn't have destroyed these people's countries and sanctioned the hell out of them and pretty much cooed all their democratically elected leaders, maybe we wouldn't be having this problem that we now have to deal with an influx of migrants. That's a fair tweet. But you're saying, you're not only calling them violent, you're saying we should send them back, but you're not talking about the other issue. You can say you should send them back, but when you don't discuss the issue as to why they're there in the first place, it leaves a lot of things to like, why aren't you mentioning this? Especially coming from California, Southern California, where, you know, like the vast majority of the economy of Southern California that caters specifically to people who are wealthier is the immigrant community. The immigrant community that literally works in restaurants, that cleans hotels, that nannies kids. That's the immigrant community that literally that really just makes up so much of Southern California. So now they're violent migrants. I don't get it. And it's not even because, you know, I'm an immigrant or any of that. It's just more of like, it just doesn't make any logical sense either. And also, I just want to address this before I hand it back to you. Close the border to everyone. We have enough problems. Okay, fine. Do you think our problems will go away if we close the border? Let's just say we close the border tomorrow, 100%, borders closed. The border isn't open, by the way. But let's just say we fully close it. Nobody comes in. Nobody comes out. Do you want to not be allowed to come out of the United States? 1, 2, do you think our problems would be solved if we did close the border? Do you think that tomorrow the government's just going to start taking care of unhoused veterans, of homeless people, and is going to start doing something about this ridiculously disastrous economy that the United States has? No, it's not going to change. please close the border. It's not going to help you. It really isn't. And that's what people, I understand that people are suffering and they're hurting. But my point is, if they close the border tomorrow, those same people are still going to be suffering and hurting because the problem is the government.
I have something a little bit different to say about that, though. We cause the problems, Irish anger. We have enough problems. This is a problem that we caused. We have 81 bases in the global south, guys. It doesn't just get there. I mean, it's just ridiculous that. Let me bring this up to how many times, how many coups, fam, have we pushed within Latin America? I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm gonna pull this up really quick just so you guys can see real quick the list of coups that we have now supported in Latin America. Here they are. Take a look. Ready? You pull this up. Sorry. U.S. intervention. Ready? Here it is. We'll go down to the list. Cuba, Dominican Republic, Grenada, Guatemala, Haiti, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, U.S. indirect intervention. Okay, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Cuba, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Guatemala, Guyana, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama. It's and that's just freaking going to like the 1969s. And if you add them all up, forget about it. This is a light list. This is a light list.
Political intervention too. I believe. I don't know if they mentioned Haiti. Haiti, Peru. They've also intervened in elections there as well. They've tried to in Argentina before as well. They have. I think they did. There's a couple of missing. You could say Brazil had U.S. intervention to help get Bolsonaro there as well. I mean,
that was on a list. That was on a list. That was on the list.
Right?
The State Department messed around. The State Department had Lula thrown in jail. They worked with that judge. That's why they had to release him. They freaking put him in jail so Bolsonaro can get there. End of story. You can't ignore that.
Yeah, you can say people shouldn't come here, but you need to acknowledge why they're coming here. We literally asked him. We've literally said, hey, come on the show, have us on, we'll have a panel. We've said it as much. It's not on us. It's not on us. It's really not on us. I will any day sit down and go toe-to-toe with Jackson on this stuff. So will Pasta. With anybody we disagree with. We will literally have a discussion, a debate, whatever. I'd rather have a discussion than a debate. I'm not here to have, a chest puff contest. Like, this is about the actual issues. Republicans are sending.
Yeah.
What? Go ahead.
I was just like, even though I'm not ready to puff my chest, and like I said, I have no ill will against Jackson, but this is really disturbing to me, this type of behavior over here. This is bullshit, and I'm not going to let that just hang out, because you can't sit there and say everybody knows why they're coming. No, nobody knows why they're coming. Nobody talks about it. Nobody admits to it. They don't understand what's going on down there, and when you go down there, you get a different perspective. Just imagine how somebody had to come this way, why they had to come this way. At one point, like I said, in El Salvador, 10 people were being killed every day by the gang wars and the freaking CIA proxy wars that happened in all these other countries like Honduras. They wanted that government out of there, and that was a puppet government by the United States. Just like there's a puppet government in Ukraine that was put in position, and now we have death and destruction going on all over the place. We never take accountability for our foreign policy, and that's something that drives me crazy with the conservatives, the party of individual responsibility that wants to brag and boast about how great we are, let's make America awesome again, and that we're number one, doesn't want to be responsible for the foreign policy woes overseas because it's not in their backyard. And when it does show up in their backyard, they say, turn their heads and say, send them back. We have enough problems. No, if you're going to sit there and you're going to live by the empire's freaking theft and destruction of other countries to enrich your country, then you better damn well be responsible for what that foreign policy does if you're going to sit there and prop it up. That's the problem here. U.S. interventions and open borders is a disaster for everyone, right? That's what David Erie says. But,
we don't have open borders.
Yeah. And to make a point, that just doesn't, what point are they making? These are.
How is that solving the problem?
They're missing the point. They're not making the point. They're missing it.
Well, they're making the point that let's blame Democrats so we can. Remember, it's midterms. It's coming. 2 years before the election. We don't have open borders. Can we stop this like false idea that we have open borders? We do not have open borders in the United States at all. We don't have open borders is basically you being able to come in and have a reason to come in and be allowed in. If we had open borders, we wouldn't have a need for ICE. We wouldn't have a need for the Department of Homeland Security to be as extensive as it is, right? You still need some sort of security, but you wouldn't see what you see out there. So
Lucky Burrito.
What has Combo Couch done? Hey, what have we done, Pasta? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't, dude. Listen, we call it like you see it. We're not about right or left. We're about right versus wrong. And if that means we're on the right with certain issues in America, like a free and fair elections and transparent elections, I just had I did a seminar or a rally or whatever you want to call it with a bunch of patriots right now. We've gone, to many Trump rallies as far as things go, COVID situations, protocols, and everything like that. I mean, come on. I mean, like, what do you mean? What have we done to reach out to the right? That's all we do is try to reach out to the right. We've been demonized and persona non grata, cut off by a lot of the left for simply reaching out and talking to the right, having guests from the right on our shows. But you know what? We're not having stupid, diluted pipe dreams to think that MAGA communism is something, and we're definitely going to call out the foreign policy woes and the reason for migration in the first place. Rodrigo?
Reaching out to the right doesn't mean you become an imperialist. You know what I mean? Like first of all, we reached out to the right when it came to elections, as Pasta said. We've reached out to the left when it comes to elections. I consider myself left. I don't think it's important right now. I think we need to move beyond labels in the United States. But if you want to talk about my ideology, I could talk about my ideology all day. I just don't think it's important right now. But what I think is important is to point out the ways that you can reach out to people through an economic lens, through giving them the information that is valid, the truth. The truth is the United States is screwing you in the United States, and the government is screwing you and screwing people abroad, and they're turning you against each other. They're just like they're turning people against Russia in order to prove a political point. That's all it is. And you're pointing at the wrong people here when you talk about immigrants and this being a major crisis. A major crisis is that the United States government doesn't give a shit about you. The United States government doesn't care about the American people. It doesn't. We know this. And to all of you people asking us to debate them, they won't debate us. We've asked them as many times. So you can come here and be a little, ask us, pretend that we haven't said this ad nauseum. But the reality is the U.S. foreign policy and this whole idea that we have open borders is just false. We don't have open borders. What we have is a country that creates regime change, that sanctions countries, that creates blockades, that extracts resources from the global South, and then uses funding like the USAID, the NEDs, the NGOs to push regime change in a multitude of countries. That's true. But the people of South America, Central America, North America, Mexico have the right to elect their leaders. And what people like right now, like what AMLO is doing by uniting, I mean, he's done more for Julian Assange than literally anybody in our country. He's also talking to people from Venezuela, people from Nicaragua. He's uniting a bunch of people. He's known as a progressive. He's not even a crazy, he's not even a radical like Daniel Ortega. And, and he's not like Fidel was. He's not Che Guevara, but Mexico's right next to the United States. Guys, they are economically tied. You can't pretend they're not. So again, these are things that are happening. Latin America is far more successful with their social movements and the things they're trying to change than anything we've ever done and anything we will do. And
fam, you're
I don't know why there's
hateful.
Yeah. Oh yes, I'm so jealous.
We hear this one.
I'm so jealous.
Girl, I'm sitting in fucking Moscow working for RT, and I got a morning show in Vegas. I'm not. You know, and once again, I've always said a lot of time people go point the finger at somebody when they need to look inside and say, okay, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not what I'm just saying. It's the way I'm saying and I have to do it better. I would never deny that. And I'm always looking to improve and be a better communicator. But this is about the issue, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not going to let this shit slip, especially when somebody who's supposed to be in our arena as far as ideology and anti-imperialism and all that other stuff is going to make bullshit comments like that. Okay. And Haas Haas wants to debate. We can go 1-on-1. We can go 2-on-2. We can do whatever they want. Okay. This bullshit is almost coming off like a QAnon board. You know, and the thing is that how are you going to go praise Donald Trump with all his particular connections and you're going to excuse him? But a guy like Gustavo Petro, who's already got all these freaking NGOs infested, got military bases. Do you know what country in the global south and Latin America gets more weapons from the United States than any other country? That's Colombia. They're an honorary NATO member. You're dealing with business when you're walking in the door. The devil is sitting inside the house and you have to do it. You have to walk on eggshells. And Gustavo Petro, right off the bat, what's he done? He's solidifying the peace agreements and ending the civil war. He's making relationships with Venezuela. He's reaching out to Western Sahara. He's already making these moves. And instead of taking away and trying to keep on throwing people and fighting a drug war in Colombia, he's trying to decriminalize a lot of the drugs. Therefore, he just takes himself out of the game. So the CIA still gets their bases, they get their cocaine, and therefore he can go in and start the process of moving forward. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right. And that's Colombia's decision if how they want to handle drugs. Just because China does something different doesn't mean it's going to work for Colombia. Just because why? Every country has the sovereign right to decide what they're going to do for their country. Like I'm not an imperialist. I'm going to go and do this, right? I'm not going to go and say dictate to another country what they should do. I'm not going to do that. So I don't understand why that sort of, again, this American exceptionalist perspective that you know better sitting on your chair from literally never going to these countries or talking to people who have been to these countries and who live in these countries who are so happy to have the sovereign right to elect whoever the hell they want to elect. That doesn't mean that there's no worthy criticisms of what some of these people are, some of these politicians like Boric. We've criticized Boric several times here. I don't understand where that doesn't mean you worship these people, but you understand that Chile elected him. They have the right to elect whoever they want. If you want to intervene in Chile's elections, well, then you're an imperialist. It is as simple as that. You're ready to intervene in a sovereign country's elections. You're as bad as NATO in the United States. That's the reality. That it's as simple as that. They have the right to elect whoever the hell they want, which is why we go and we witness elections. So we know, we're like, hey, let's learn from this. Let's bring it to the right and say, hey guys, guess what? Hugo Chavez isn't coming back from the dead and ruining your elections here. By the way, elections of the United States and how Trump, the election was unfair. We were the only people on the left talking about that. Literally. Go back. Like we were the only people talking about that and getting completely just completely creamed for like even talking to Trump supporters and also, of course, the COVID situation, which neither of us were ever happy about getting vaccinated or any of that stuff. So that's
telling somebody they went too far and did a story called the conspiracy smoothie and then go on.
Well, that's on the Great Reset. Yeah.
Yeah, please. It's just like, it's all over and stuff. And Haas, right there, you'll debate me. Okay, let's go. Let me know when, baby. Let me know when. I'm ready.
You should. Yeah.
Let me know when. And Saul Construct, we love you too.
Sol.
It's all good. It's all good.
All right. So, I mean, I don't know what else you want to say about that. I think
that's the sections for today. We have some stuff in the headlines. I do have to play this. I figured we can play it on the way out, fam. Just a couple really quick things I want to talk about. Guys, do us a favor. Go over to the Convo Couch. Rockfin, help us out. If you approach Haas like a respectful adult, he will treat you with respect. Debate Haas.
I love how he sends his minions. It's so funny.
Oh, fine.
Okay.
Like we said, Fee said we'll have a discussion about this. We'll have a
How
discussion.
How is that not respectful?
So, like he can explain to me. Maybe he can educate me on why Donald Trump gets a pass for all his shady connections. But Petro, who's got to go operate in a country infested with freaking NGOs doesn't get the pass. How Gabriel Boric, who started in 2018, even though you want to pull up Macron and go, Macron's a third party. Yeah, Macron's party was a split off of the Socialist Party that started in 1960 something. Please, it's just, and I'm not trying to even make that freaking point anymore. I'm trying to say is that how do you have proof that these guys are taken over and controlled by globalists like Macron? They're equating Gabriel Boric and Gustavo Petro to Macron.
Oh, by the way, to that comment that said I was jealous of Hinkle, bro, like I'm here in Moscow doing actual journalism. Like I have nothing to be jealous about at all, whatsoever. I have no desire to conduct myself in that way that I see Jackson being conducted. I mean, when Jackson was doing great things, I was with him, man. We did the force the vote. Like I'm all for that. If you want to go back to being, to doing that stuff, I'll be there with you. But this is just, we're going to disagree on some things and we're going to say them. It's not, I have zero, it's such a cheap shot to be like, oh, someone's jealous. No, I have nothing to be jealous about. I literally got back, and I'll tell you guys a quick story. With some, I was with Venezuelan friends who work here in Moscow and deal with the petrol industry, which a lot of Patsocks love the petrol. And it's an industry that Russia and Venezuela are cooperating greatly on. And they were really excited about Gustavo Petro because you know what just happened, fam? Avianca, our favorite airline, just reopened a flight from Bogota to Caracas in 1 hour.
Yeah.
That's what's happening with Gustavo Petro. Not only are they normalizing relationships economically and politically, they literally just opened up flights between the two countries. That had never happened before. It hadn't happened in years. These two countries were pitted against each other as fighting each other, as enemies when they were brothers. And the election of Petro has signified a complete and total hope to going back to this brotherhood with Venezuela. And people are very excited about that. There's been a lot of things that have happened in history, and they're happy to leave that behind from the Duque regime. And Prasa, you made a great point earlier when you said, so what if Petro is an NED, whatever, then what was Ivan Duque, who they were trying so hard to not allow Petro to win? Why then? Why is Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, why are they all ranting against Colombia and saying how if things would have been different a few years ago and we could have stopped that election? Why are they so intent and so clearly fearful of Colombia if the dude is an NED, USAID puppet? Like,
yeah,
seriously, it's just complete, total fabrication.
And this whole process too, about, I don't even want to. I'm done with the situation. I had enough. I don't want to listen. We can have a conversation about this. I'm open to do it with Oz and Hinkle anytime they want. I get emotional about this subject because it really is sad. This is, the way to see these immigrants are treated. Nobody looks at their story. Nobody goes down there and see what's going on. We spoke to the leader of the Communist Party. Fee translated for him when he came to speak, and they even said the same thing. They're like, look, we understand Petro isn't exactly what we want. We're not romanced by Petro. He's not a communist by any way, shape, or form, but we understand he's the one we trust most within the establishment to take us to the next step. And that's to move us closer to our national sovereignty, to build relationships with Venezuela, to more importantly, end the civil war. And he's making moves to do that thing, to look at the Amazon and really, stop the crazy drilling that's going on there. And that was something that was spun out of control. Like, oh, these guys want to get away from oil and stuff like that. This is like the equivalent to an ESG that we see. No, it's like, it's the Amazon, dude. If they dirty up the Amazon, and disgusting things have been going on in the Amazon in Brazil, disgusting things have been going on in the Amazon in Colombia. They need to be, they need to be stopped. We're talking about indigenous people who are losing their lands because all these Western companies are coming in there, drilling like crazy, and leaving the place like shit and taking off. If the pink dolphins die, then we die. And that's just the end of it. We would play the dolphin thing all the whole time. You got to look at the situation in a nuanced manner. We understand the ESGs that are being propagated in and pushed forward in Canada, United States, and the Netherlands, in Europe. They are a way of getting rid of the small farmer to get the big farmer to come in for people like Gates and everything to swallow them up. That is not what Petro and Marquia Francia are trying to do, because they understand they have a different task at hand. Francia Marquez, thank you so much. They have a different task at hand. So you have to look at it in a nuanced manner. Fam, really quick before we get out of here.
Yeah, and I just want to say Venezuela and Colombia are going to be fine when it comes to oil, because if Venezuela is cooperating with Colombia, that has already been talked about. So
yeah, remember this one, fam?
Oh,
remember
God.
this one? She refused to endorse them. Remember the job of the squad was to go in there and to fight the party, to change the Democratic Party from within, to not let these psychos go crazy anymore. Well, I guess they just kind of bent the knee, fam.
Yeah.
Also, we got this really quick. Yeah, I know, right? Also, we got this one, fam. I'm going to show this here because I know you. I don't know if you guys were talking about this last night. I think you were. Did you guys do any stuff about Rand Paul yesterday?
I don't think so.
No? All right. Really quickly. Here we go. This is Rand Paul in the Senate hearing the other day.
And you refused to answer whether anybody on the vaccine. And furthermore,
Fauci,
we've been asking you, and you refused to answer whether anybody on the vaccine committees gets royalties from the pharmaceutical companies. I asked you last time, and what was your response? We don't have to tell you.
Right.
We've demanded them through Freedom of Information Act. And what have you said? We're not going to tell you. But I tell you this, when we get in charge, we're going to change the rules, and you will have to divulge where you get your royalties from what companies. And if anybody in the committee has a conflict of interest, we're going to learn about it. I promise you that. And
furthermore, Senator Rand Paul, I am Dr. Fauci, and I don't have to answer to you because you are nothing to me. Fam, I'm going to read some super rays and get out of here. Anything else you want to talk about real quick?
No, that's it.
Long show today, as always. Fam went and worked a long-ass shift and she came here. Hey, Rem, thank you again for that Super Ray contribution. David Crow. David, we saw the Assange van. David Crow now runs, fam, he turned the van into an Assange van. It's got Assange's picture up there. He was at Jimmy Dore's show in Spokane. David Crow. We love you, brother. We miss you, and we hope to see you soon. Scotty Johnson, Scotty the Bull, thank you for the Super Ray contribution. As always, appreciated the couch. Jim Garrison, I love it when Fee talks leftist live from Moscow. Like Jim Garrison, thank you so much, Jim Garrison. It's always a pleasure. Chris Leon, just here showing some love. I saw that Haas guy for the first guy went on his channel, and he's doing a breakdown of your video criticism, Fee. And this guy almost made me vomit. He's a misogynist, racist, homophobic, anti-climate, and I'm not using these terms lightly like the shitlibs do. I saw this whole stream, and my goodness gracious, this guy is a psycho, and anyone who takes him as a role model, wow. Thank you, Chris Leone. On the immigrants note, my mom was telling me, watching the news, and even though I don't like her take it, it makes me wonder, now that it's Venezuelans and South Americans, not so much Mexicans are coming, oh, the activists are up in arms, oh, we need to help them and provide. But when it was Mexicans and Central Americans, I didn't see this interest to help them. I hate to agree with her, but she has a point, fam. Anything to say about that?
I don't know. I haven't really. I mean, I think that a lot of people just put them all in the same category, to be honest. I mean, that's just been my experience. People don't, and I mean, I do think there is more of like, Central Americans are, because they can take some Venezuelans who are anti-Maduro and use them to their own accord. That could definitely happen, especially in terms of like, oh, these poor Venezuelans, because a lot of what they hear in the media is about how Maduro is awful and all this stuff. But actually, that might be a media thing. But what's actually been happening, and this is what I've been talking about to some Venezuelans, a lot of people are coming back to Venezuela. And this, I mean, some of the neoliberal Venezuelans are telling me that, like, a lot of people are coming back to Venezuela. Juan Guaido was literally nobody. That's why he was treated as such. He's literally nobody. Like, he has nothing. And right now, Venezuela is doing a lot better than it was before. And the people who stayed are seeing that. And some people are coming back saying they have a nice life there. They're not as oppositional to Maduro anymore because they see things are getting better. So actually, things are changing right now in Latin America in those terms. And so that's why this election in Brazil is so important, because it's really going to determine a lot of different things. And that one's a complicated election, as we've talked about numerous times. So we'll see what happens.
All right, I'm getting a little worked up, and I'm sorry here, but I'm going to read this from Very Safe Bot US Biolabs, and I'll give you an answer for this too as well. I'm sorry, I'm from the left. I still never voted for the GOP, but I don't see a problem with what Governor Abbott and DeSantis are doing. They're essentially telling the blue states and blue power players, this is what you want, you deal with it. Put your money where your mouth is. And the blues in quintessential nymphy hypocrisy and regular hypocrisy show their true colors. Very Safe US Biolabs. They're fucking human beings. They're fucking human beings. We're using human beings as pawns to push the left, so that makes it right, because the left are a bunch of jerk-offs. Why aren't the same people than the Republicans here in this country who sit there and point to all these globalists taking advantage of them realize that it's the same globalists that are going down there creating this chaos in the global south, which is driving people here? Why? Why does the party of individual responsibility not see this? God,
because they play team sports. Because they play team sports. So, in other words, what Pasta's saying too is that the Democrats obviously are just as at fault for this as the Republicans are, right? It's not like the Republicans aren't at fault for these immigrants being here either. It's both of them, because they're two sides of the same coin. So it's not really like they're not really pointing out what the Democrats have done. It's because it's not just the Democrats that have done that. The Democrats may play the rhetoric that they care more, but they don't give a shit. We saw what AOC did, right? We've seen what Kamala has said. They don't give a shit either. They don't give a shit, either of them. They weaponize and tokenize minorities for their political agenda. Both sides do it. They both do it.
I am not
100%.
picking the Democrats on this. The Democrats are just as bad as the Republicans when it comes to this issue, because they are part of the actual problem. Okay? Obama declared Venezuela as a terrorist state. This is what Max Blumenthal asked somebody, the Obama administration, a long time ago. Obama in his presidency removed Manuel Zelaya from office. They're just as bad. But both parties, neither one of them are looking at the actual problem. This is why I want to bring patriots down to the global south, because they have to go see it. They have to go witness it. They're being played. And if you're a conservative and you're so scared and you're so worried about the resources that are being wasted on illegals over here, you should be equally concerned about the money that's wasted down there to perpetrate these wars.
If not more concerned, because you wouldn't have to worry about people coming in. Most people don't want to leave their country. They have a life, they have their families. Why the hell would people want to leave their country and put their life in danger to come to the United States and live like the way they live? It's just completely ridiculous, this idea that people just want. I mean, yes. And then if you wanted to also stop promoting the propaganda that we're the greatest country on earth, because we're not. Yeah, clearly we're not. And there's nothing to be proud of right now at the moment of the United States, like in the way they're conducting the foreign policy and the way people both on the left and the right are really not having these conversations that need to be had that we're bringing up today. And again, it's the tit for tat is team sports. It's how we're going to get back at the Democrats. And then the Democrats are like, oh, they're all racist. But they don't get to the fucking problem is that Democrats are just as bad because they're all supporting these interventionist foreign policies right now at this very moment. It won't matter if your guy Trump wins or if Joe Biden or some freaking moron from the squat decides to run for president. It doesn't matter, because either way, the foreign policy is conducted by the national security state apparatus and the military industrial complex. We don't have fair elections in this country at all. So we'll see who they select next. But Biden nor Trump is going to solve anybody's problems. Trump is not an outsider. Trump is going to play, and he is being used by the establishment to promote civil war. He's being used as a distraction yet again. They're trying to repeat the cycle that already happened, and they're using Republicans to do it. So that's it. They want to divide the country further, and all this does, all this freaking MAGA communist shit does, because it's not based in reality, it's not based on facts, it's not based on economics. All it does is divide and make people choose teams. We're more divided than ever. If you want to bring people together, you don't focus on cult personality. You don't puff your chest and say things just because you think they sound good. You literally do your fucking research. You go to these countries and then you understand what's going on here. And then you talk economics to people who are suffering here and the people that are suffering there. And you realize you all have a lot more in common than you think. And that's how you bring people together. Any other way, through an ideological means, or of saying, you're on my team, or you're this, or you're a liberal, or you're that, and all that bullshit, it's just not working, and it hasn't ever worked. It's not going to work.
And it's just like what's going on in the Ukraine. It was all the carpetbaggers like Nancy Pelosi with Paul Pelosi, Hunter Biden, John Kerry's son, Mitt Romney, Adam Schiff, all those people were carpetbagging, just making a shit ton of money illegally in there because they destabilized the government to get these contracts and get these, extract these resources and do their thing. But it would have never been set up if it wasn't for John McCain and Lindsey Graham, two hardcore neoconservative Republicans going down there and telling Azov battalion and Ukrainian members that we'll back them against Russia years ago. Both parties work together to do this shit. And at the end of the day, they go, oh, we're not going to intervene, but oh wait, we got to go down there because communism and socialism. Ronnie Graham, as a UK citizen, I'm getting a paid day off on Monday for the funeral. Probably won't happen again in my lifetime. Royals all seem to live into their 90s. Yeah, I know it's crazy. For the Royals, they give you the time off and the money, but if you had to go to the doctor on your own, sorry, pal, you lose points. You might lose your job. OTR Trucker. Listen to this here. This is beautiful. This is what I want to see. You know what I'm going to do? OTR Trucker, I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy this right now. Boom. Check it out. I can go over to my StreamYard, and now I'm going to paste it right in here. And now I'm going to put it up here. And now I'm going to, fam, watch this. Wait, here we go. So there's the first part. We have made these Monroe Doctrine countries unlivable. Where do we expect them to go when the bombs fall? SOAD. The southern border has been our most secure border since we took California and New Mexico from Mexico, and the two parties with one narrative have been pushing whatever narrative leads to, how do you say that word?
Vociferous.
And even violent protection of those territorial gains. I don't know what that last comment was. You want me to put it back up?
No, I just didn't. I just started reading it. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Russians would speak more English, but
this is a very interesting one. This country right here, I'm kind of on the fence about. I talked about it with Camilla yesterday. There was a lot of people down there celebrating the independence, Nayib Bukele, and they were saying that some people were saying that he was overreaching, being too authoritarian with all the stopping of the busing, and there was maybe protesters that were coming down, and he was stopping them too as well. But they have a history of MS-13 and how they were sent back from LA in the 1996 Immigration Act signed by Bill Clinton, pretty much essentially sending people whose sons and daughters of immigrants, mostly sons of immigrants from the global South, mainly Central America, that had never been down in El Salvador, sending them and deporting them to El Salvador, causing a serious problem. We're going to talk more about that with Camilla next week. She's going to come on both the shows, fam, and we're going to see her in Brazil. By the way, guys, if you haven't gone over to our Brazil page, we can really use the help. GiveSendGo.com, the Convo Couch Brazil. You know how we do. We need you to help us out and get us with our boots on the ground. Thank you, OTR Trucker. You're right. What do we expect them to do? When we make these countries unlivable, where do we expect them to go? Chris Leone, Fee and Pasta, I'm with you guys all the way, not for a cult or of personality, but because you guys care. And I'm sick of all these people giving Jackson a pass for his age. When I was 23, 8 years ago, I wasn't stupid. Also want to know why people defend Jackson for the same reason people give refuge to Ukrainians over Haitians. You know what I mean, guys. So yeah, fam.
I mean, I think that plays definitely a role in it as well. But I also think it's also America, the U.S. They love and they love an entertainment. They love narcissists. They love people who really just put it out there and that create a show. And I think that's something that the American people have to work on as a culture. I'm not gonna go after people to try not to watch somebody. Watch whatever the hell you want. Look at whatever you want. But there's gonna be pushback on information that is invalid. This is our specialty. I mean, we know Latin America very well. We know elections very well. We know foreign policy very well. We've gone all over the world and covered stuff. I mean internationally now, like Moscow. I plan on going to the Donbass. I plan on going to Syria. I plan on obviously we're going to Brazil. Pasta's been all over Central America and South America. He hadn't even had a passport before we decided to do this. And that Pasta, I just want to ask you one last thing, right? Like, what do you believe that you have changed your perspective on things even more? Because you had some of the similar beliefs before we went to Honduras, before we went to the global South. But do you believe that changed your perspective going to these countries as an American that hadn't traveled outside of it?
Yes. The thing that is, it becomes more endearing inside your heart when you see what happens to these people and they have to do it, that you already had a clue, you already had an idea about why they came here, but you reach a level of compromisation, right? Like the whole thing is that, we expected, and this is when we kind of like, when I had that discussion with Jackson on Jimmy Dore, was the fact that like, yeah, you want to question right off the bat, why aren't they nationalizing this? It's like when we talk to the people in Honduras, what are you going to nationalize? Oh, we're not going to nationalize this. Whoa, wait. We just came from Nicaragua where they're taking control of their own sovereignty. They have their own food sovereignty to the point of like 95, 98%. They say, Yankee, go home. Why aren't they doing the same in Honduras? Well, you learn that each country is different and each country has its own specific story and each country has its own path, its own leaders, and its own way of choosing things.
Yes.
And you learn to accept those things. The hardest thing I have to accept, somebody said before, like, why are they wearing masks outside? I hate it when I go to the global South and Latin America and I see people wearing masks outside. I hate it when some people are fighting in Venezuela for more, jab equity? What do they call it, fam? When they want more jabs themselves and they feel that the United States has turned them away. I hate it when they buy into that shit. I do. But you know what I learned? I learned to respect them and their ways and their views and their learning process and what they think is best for them. I learned this much when I went down there, and I changed the way when I kind of address an issue. Same the way I've changed in addressing issues when it comes to patriots in this country over here, people who have thought differently than me. You know what I'm saying? You have to go into the door in a proper way. You have to be more open and understanding. You have to be more respectful. You have to listen a lot. A lot of times, those people in the global South don't know people like me, looking like me, telling them what to do. And I don't like to play the identity politic game at all, but it's the goddamn truth. You know what I'm saying? So you have to listen, you have to learn. So I did have a different perspective when I came, and actually kind of went the other way. You know what I'm saying? To understand that, okay, hey, what I learned is that not all these people are hardcore leftists that want communism, socialism, that they actually do like a form of capitalism and they want to go with more of the Western ways. Well, how do you respect that as opposed to some people who do want to take their own sovereignty and have a collective mindset and get the United States empire off their neck once and for all? There's balance there all the way. It's like you said, Fee, anybody in your family that mentioned communism, they don't want anything to do with it whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that surprised me about the global South and Latin America. You got to go down there and you got to see what these people are about and you got to talk to them. And you can get a lot done in a week to 10 days when you do go to those countries. You talk to a ton of people. You see where they feel. You talk to everybody, cab drivers, waiters, bus boys, people who work inside the mall, people who work in the hotel business, people who work in the restaurant business. You talk to the people. You get a different perspective about what's going on and you listen and you really, really learn. I didn't like Gustavo Petro on paper when I looked at him. I did see the connections with the USAID between him and his vice president too as well. I did see the pictures of him and Bill Clinton. I did see all that stuff back in the days. I understood that he was kind of an establishment candidate, But when I went to Colombia and it was explained to us, especially from the leader of the Communist Party, when he said, plain and simple, he's what we need right now. You have to respect that, and then you can understand why and learn why. And I did. It does change your perspective when you go down there. Everything is not as black and white. It's very, very gray. It's very, very nuanced. And the only way to really learn is to go down there. But when you're going to start repeating shit that is equivalent to grabbing off a QAnon board because this guy has a relationship with this NGO, I mean, Jesus Christ, there's no way to do business without these people at the table. Like I said, there's military bases in Colombia. It's an honorary NATO country. You think that Gustavo Petro can go in there and just throw the West out and nothing's going to happen? They have funding ready in play to coup him if in case he does jump. And then people go, well, why did the United States allow this to happen? Well, the United States can't overplay their hand. Okay, you got to understand something. The United States just can't make a firm decision and it's going to happen. A lot of time it's going to backfire. And if the people are getting too much pushing back in these other countries right now, right, they can't just say, no, we don't want to have Gustavo Petro. They risk losing the whole country itself, just like they lost Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua for overplaying their hands. So you have to understand all the parties that are involved. You know what I'm saying? So the United States empire sometimes is going to have to deal with whoever they chose. They had to let Xiomara Castro get back into power. If they would have cheated Xiomara Castro this time, fam, the country would have fucking erupted, would it not? They would have gone crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that is what I learned.
And Honduras, again, is, they went from, and same with Nicaragua, from Taiwan to opening relations with China as well. Honduras is, again, like Xiomara was pushing democratic socialism. She wasn't pushing anything with, like communism. Those people don't want, like, a lot of these people don't want, they're not ready for it. They're just, they still have remnants of negativity placed on them by the West, and for a multitude of reasons, completely in history, right? It's historic. Like there's so much history that has gone in these countries that you need to know about to understand that. Because to me too, if I were to live in a country in Latin America, it would probably be Venezuela, Cuba, or Nicaragua, maybe Mexico, because the AMLO is great. But other than that, like, I don't, because I like the countries that are the most radicalized. I also like Bolivia, but it gets a little cold there, so I don't think I can do it. But it's just, it's just what?
Well, I said we'll play this out. I know you've been up there. Just hold on. You've been up. It's really late. We have one more super raid, by the way. It's from Alvin Johnson. Says, not a troll. Thank you, Alvin Johnson. Guys, thank you to all that lovely finances that you guys put in the till. It's gonna do wonders when we go down to Brazil. That's what we do with this money. We take the money you give us and we put it into play. We put it on the streets. We get our boots on the ground. We run these shows. Fee's going to be going from Moscow to Brazil. I'll be going from Florida to Brazil after a little stop back in Vegas to go pick up my passport and a few other things. But I want to thank you all for joining today. Guys, go to GiveSendGo.com, the Convo Couch Brazil. Please do that, guys. It would mean the world to us. You don't know how much it would mean to us to get that done. We need that to get that done so we can get over there. It is a really pricey trip. Fam, anything else you got before we get on out of here? It's going to be a nice weekend.
Yes. Look out for stuff happening in Russia. So
yeah,
there's a lot of tension right now.
Yeah. We're going to use this to play us out, fam.
Oh, yes. Yes.
The weeping announcer, the doleful music, the slow movement of the cortege. It was all intensely choreographed. This is a difficult moment for dictatorship. The succession has now passed peacefully to the third generation of the family business, but it's a worrying inheritance all the same. This year hasn't been a good one for dictators. This is the weird, reclusive figure who ran the world's most secretive country and did it as though it was his own private property. Looking on was his son, who's around 28. No one knows for sure. He'll take over. And this is where the money, which might have been spent on better living conditions, actually goes. A select few talk to camera. It doesn't exactly sound spontaneous.
lying in state and food up.
Snow is falling like tears, he says. How could the heavens not cry when we've lost our general, who was a great man from the heavens?
Along with the army, the country's media is perhaps the institution most responsible for keeping their leaders in power. A myth-making factory focused around the country's ruling family. That is, for most of its audience, their only source of news.
Still, the son has the right credentials.
The elite know that they need him. They need a blood descendant for their legitimacy. Once they lose that, they're in trouble.
No one knows what'll happen to the country now.
Bye, guys. Thank you for watching.